With Alert Day coverage now, this is Wave News.
Hi there, I'm Shannon Kogan. Yep, it is an alert day. This is the remnants of Hurricane Beryl, now tropical storm system. But let's go over to meteorologist Brian Good to get the latest.
All right, thanks, Shannon. Yeah, we've been tracking Beryl now for well over a week, and continues now to move across the nation's heartland. I'll show you that in a second. Right now, we've got a couple of thunderstorms nearby the city. Very ominous-looking clouds. Probably heard a little bit of thunder, some heavy rain in your area. Currently holding at 80 degrees. So here is the center of Beryl, which it doesn't look like it's very focused around the center itself. Most of the rain is lopsided on the northern side. There is a warm front too locked in this area, so kind of combining together. But this is where you're going to run into bigger problems when it comes to flooding. Will be Missouri, Illinois, parts of Indiana, maybe West Kentucky as well. But we are on the northeast side of the track. That quadrant, anytime you're north and east of a track like this, especially with a fading tropical system, you're a threat for damaging winds and even a few tornadoes can certainly develop, especially if you're getting heating going on. So that's the reason why the Storm Prediction Center did move us up yet another level on severe today to a level 3 and enhanced right across Evansville, right into the Louisville area and southern Indiana for this afternoon and this evening. Not everyone's included in that, but this certainly is the zone that continues to stand out as the focal point for anything that can rotate today would be Indiana and very close to Louisville and along the river. If you're further north or south of that, different types of threats, not so much on the spinning side will be an issue for you. All right, one downpour. This is actually a small supercell that split into Harrison County. Watched it carefully as it moved right across downtown Louisville. Now begin to weaken a bit more as it tracks into Clark County. Some very ominous looking clouds as it moves on by. I'm sure it's getting a lot of attention there, but it's again fading out. Now the sun's coming back out in southern Kentucky, and now we get ready for the next phase of showers and storms to develop, and we're thinking that's going to be later on this afternoon into the evening hours. Again, supercells will be one of the bigger things we'll have to watch because just about every one of them can rotate and likely will and can produce additional warnings as we head into this evening. It's not going to be for all areas, but if you are in that zone, just highlighted along the Ohio River area, including Louisville, you need to be on guard. We'll talk more about timing, impacts, and what is after this system coming up. And if you
All right, so now Beryl is coming here. Hopefully we don't lose power too, but we could get some pretty high winds, Brian.
Yeah, I think in some cases with these thunderstorms, higher winds will be a concern. Beryl's now in the process of becoming what we call an extratropical system as it's on land now, and eventually will become just a typical low pressure, and the severe weather elements will become typical of severe weather. Right now, we're still getting that mix of a tropical system, kind of a hybrid type of setup, so that's the reason why we still get some very heavy tropical rains, but we also have your typical like springtime thunderstorms involved that can produce some isolated tornadoes in this kind of a setup. Very common in landfalling tropical systems in our area to experience that. Usually these are big drought busters too for a lot of you. We've had some heavy rain as of late, but still they are beneficial to us if they just don't get too out of hand, right? All right, the alert day is out until the 11 o'clock hour, and it's for multiple issues. Obviously the one that gets a lot of attention is the tornado threat. It is absolutely warranted on being there. And then the straight line threat will be there at times. Any cells, a little blowing segment that can develop or even a downburst can't take place. I'm not too concerned on the hail side of things. Flash flooding mainly north and west of Louisville, where you will be closer to the core and the track of Beryl. You can really get some really high rain totals. So as always, we do this in the springtime, sometimes in the fall, but we're also going to do it in the middle of summer. And just remind you guys to have your checklist ready to go, a way to be notified if you're going to be out and about. Wave Weather app is a great tool for that, for lightning, heavy rain notifications, not even to mention the severe weather alerts, which you can also get on the Wave on the NOAA weather radio. Just make sure to replace the batteries in that and keep it plugged in. And speaking of power there, make sure that everything, your phones, all your devices charged up, ready to go in case you were to have some brief outages here today. And of course, don't forget the air raid sirens are for those that are just literally outside, not for those inside, so they don't really help you out. All right, let's get you outside here, and where we got that overcast sky, we've had some ominous looking clouds moving on by based on where they're at within the city. But this is the one cell that is now moving into Oldham County. We're looking at the back end of the cell now. It's already passed by us, so it's moving away from this camera view, heading up the Ohio River. Currently 83 degrees in Louisville. All right, here is the center. If we were to be able to draw it, you can't tell on the radar as much as you would when it was over the Atlantic and the Gulf, but the center of it is just north of Memphis, where the spin is located. I mentioned before there is a warm front that is also in the area, so the tropical system here, Beryl, is taking all that tropical rain and pushing it up against the wall, which is the warm front. And boy, you got to watch right there where that water is collected against that wall, if you will. That's where you get some very heavy rain and flash flooding. Now, for us, we're just south of that flooding zone. We're going to be in the area when they get these cells, these bands that'll be developed this afternoon. Already seen a few trying to break out, even a tornado warning northeast areas of Mississippi as a result. That's what we're going to watch this afternoon, because based on the timing of the center of Beryl moving by and these bands moving north, it all works out. If you were to draw a line there and draw a line right up to here, that would be this afternoon and evening. So where you will get the max heating of the day right in our backyard with this kind of a setup, and that's why the severe risk has been elevated. You can see that trend right there along the Ohio River, including at least part of Louisville, but certainly Indiana back to Evansville is the area to watch. Level 3 out of 5 on the severe risk. And as I mentioned, we had that one supercell that did split. One went north. This one's still trying to hold on as it moves into Oldham County. At times, it's been showing some low-level rotation. A lot of it's been broad, though, and as it moves on by, a little bit of gusty winds with it. So every time it tries to organize and do something, it works against itself and falls apart. So that's not a bad thing, but we're still watching in Goshen all the way up just along and basically parallel to I-71. You can see a little bit of wind now approaching near LaGrange. We'll be watching that and see if we get another gust again that could get a little closer to severe limits. I can't rule out a warning or two with that batch. It's possible. All right, we get a break for a while this afternoon. The sun coming out, that's good and bad. Good gives you a break. Bad that it would just fuel the next feeder bands that come in from Beryl this evening out of Tennessee. Those are the ones that we'll have to watch for any rotation. And as we've seen already in Louisiana, into Texas and Arkansas, you can get tornadoes and damage out of that. So we need to watch it carefully. It's a very unique setup. We run into this every year, every other year or so, and so it's not that rare. We've done it before, but it is a sensitive one. You got to watch them carefully. Tomorrow, just windy and breezy out. A few showers left around, but mainly dry. And then the heat is on. Hello, heat wave that'll last for, well, quite some time. More on the setup on this alert day coming up in the next half hour. Shannon?
Brian, thank you.
Breaker location, and we'll be out there to greet everyone. We're going to be in Jeffersonville as well. Again, that'll be on the 17th, an earlier showing than the actual premiere on the 19th. On the 17th, it's a Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We'll get there early. We'll be announcing if you won or not very soon, so stay tuned. We'll let you know when that officially has been done. All right, there's been a lot of you wanting to go, and I hope most of you have a chance to do just that. All right, today, though, let's hope we don't get any real-life Hollywood stuff going on here, right? We don't want that, but we do have a tornado threat today. At the moment, it is quiet. I know it's looked eerie in the past hour. Some of these clouds rolling on by. Here it is in Oldham County. You can see some of the low-hanging clouds just barely off the ground there. This is in Westport, Kentucky, from our Kentucky Mesonet camera. At one point, we had what looked to be a wall cloud that was coming out of the storm, which basically is one of the first phases you get to a funnel cloud, then eventually to a tornado. So it was a little eerie there for a while, but the rotation just did not lock in enough for the Weather Service to go with a warning on that. But we've been watching it, and it's so far the same thing has been noted here. It's just barely at that level, but not quite to the point where it's likely. So we're watching it. It's a small little cell right on the edge of this little complex of rain moving across Indiana. But this is the core of the entire setup of what was once Hurricane Beryl. And located now just north of Memphis, Tennessee. It's been producing so many tornado warnings in the deep south into the Mississippi Valley during the entire night. It's just now finally trying to quiet down, but now we're getting back into the heating of the day, so that's only going to add more fuel for the showers and storms to feed on as they move to the north and east. So the heart of Beryl will be tracking right across Indiana, near the river, in fact, all the way into Ohio. I want to be clear, this is not officially a tropical storm. This is not a tropical depression. These are now considering the remnants of Beryl. So this is nothing like what we had in the Ike setup several years ago. You guys remember that. But certainly it's still the main spin that is allowing for it to cause some weather issues when it gets into a hot and humid environment that is more inland away from the ocean. So here's the heat and humidity building across Tennessee now. Starting to see hints of it into Kentucky. It's right where they meet, where that heat and humidity and the track of Beryl. That's where you need to watch for your most potential there to get spinning to develop for tornadoes. And that looks to be very much in our backyard. How lucky are we? So as it moves on by, heightened awareness is going to be the key thing as we head into this afternoon and tonight. That's the reason why the Storm Prediction Center has placed not only just the slight risk, but the enhanced risk, and especially in a corridor that's very focused. You don't get these smaller ones very often, but it's because confidence is high enough to know that this is the belt that we need to watch of that clashing of that humid air and the track of Beryl. That would put Evansville, Corydon, Salem, parts of Louisville, and Madison, Indiana in the zone to really watch some of these cells that can rotate, even an isolated setup where that could still happen even if you're south of that zone, so be aware of it. All right, here's the one supercell that quickly already scoot right across downtown Louisville, gave us all some eerie looking clouds. It is now moving quickly into Trimble, almost into Carroll. Still not quite to a point where it's spinning enough to get a warning out on it, but still could produce some straight line winds. So Weather Service is watching it carefully, so if there's any alerts, they'll pass those along. Now for us, we've got sun that is coming out now across central Kentucky. We're heating things up, and now we got to watch these outer bands, the ones that always wrap around a tropical system, right? Well, that's one of these outer bands. It's now Mississippi that'll be drifting to the north and then back toward the low itself. And when it makes that turn north and turns backwards, that's when you can get tornadoes that can form. So I think anywhere in that path there that we just showed you near the Ohio River, I think is a spot to watch. But we need a few more hours of heating to likely get things really to fire up, and that's why this looks to be an evening threat more than any other time. Now, you can get a severe storm at any point in the next 12, so we've highlighted just about every hour just because of that idea, and then we'll taper it down after midnight. Doesn't mean we're going to get storms every hour. It doesn't mean you're going to get severe weather every hour, even if you get a storm. But it does mean that we have now entered the danger zone, if you will, in terms of if a warning can get issued or not. That is possible from here on out for the afternoon. You need to be weather aware for sure. All right, first round moving on by. Again, a few more cells try to pop at times, but as we get into this evening, these cells move in along one of these feeder bands. This is what we got to watch out for damage winds, isolated tornadoes, and boy, this is a tropical system, right? I mean, we're talking about a ton of heavy rainfall. We got to watch for flash flooding as it moves on by. By the time we get to 11 o'clock news tonight, I'm hoping everyone can get to bed and sleep soundly for the overnight. There's a closer view of that enhanced risk across Indiana. We'll give it all the way to about 11 o'clock. All the threats are certainly on the table there. All right, so as we watch the trends of future casts, those showers and storms move on by, we're going to be watching for, again, not only intense rainfall and heavy rain, but also that chance we could get one or two of those stronger storms that could roll into the area. Here's the rest of the 10-day. We've got a gusty wind scenario, spotty showers on Wednesday, quieting down in the extended, but boy, it's heating up. Another heat wave on the way with hardly any rainfall to talk about. So there's a plus in the rainfall, Shannon, for this afternoon. We don't want a ton of it at once, but we need something, I guess, to hold us over for about the next week or so with that heat.
Yeah, because we're going to have big water bills and big AC bills.
You got it.
All right. Coming up on midday.
With Alert Day coverage now, this is Wave News.
You're watching Wave News at noon. I'm Olivia Russell, and it is a wave weather alert day, so I want to send things straight over to meteorologist Brian Good. Brian, how's it looking right now?
At the moment, okay, but at times, I'm sure it's been a little eerie looking out there with some of these clouds been zipping on by. Maybe some heavy rain in Indiana at your location as it moved through. Even saw a report of maybe some trees that were knocked down at Sellersburg with some of the wind that came through there. Not severe wind, but we've had a lot of rain as of late, so even strong wind gusts below severe limits can knock over some tree limbs, so be mindful of that as we go through this event. Right now, it's just warm, humid outside. Beryl is now just a remnant low. It's no longer a tropical storm or anything like that, but it is still spinning. Easy to see that across here to southeast Missouri, heading to the north and east. Now, we are in a bad spot because anywhere in the northeast side of a tropical system, even if it's fading away, that is we're going to get a natural spin and leading to tornado development. It doesn't happen all the time, but in this particular scenario, in the summer, and the heat coming back through with the clouds breaking up, yep, it's a good setup to see potential for severe weather. So we need to watch that, all right? First round of cells moved on by, but as the heat builds, that track near and south and east of it, that is where we're going to be watching for that severe potential, and that's where we have the enhanced risk. You kind of see it behind the radar. Seymour, Madison, around Louisville, back to Evansville. But everywhere, really, if you got a risk out, you can run into a warning setup here today. But I think that's the focal point, will be near the river. Here's the first supercell, moved on by quickly. Now it slides into areas of Carroll County. It's still holding on, still enough to produce maybe some isolated cases of gusty winds. The Weather Service is watching it. It's almost out of our area. A couple more may try to form closer to the metro this afternoon. Otherwise, with the heating of the day, it's going to be showers and storms developing in Tennessee that will race north in our area. That will take another 6 hours for that to happen. That's what the highest of the rain chances you see here in the next 12 are all this evening and tonight. More on that coming up in just a few more minutes, Olivia.
All right, we'll check in with you again soon. Thanks.
I'm meteorologist Ryan Hoke, and you're watching WAVE.
Well, Brian, it is an alert day, and I know I was texting my little sister today, and she's trying to map out her day. What time does she need to leave work? Can she go out for dinner tonight? So many questions with the timing of this storm.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. They're very much at a very random nature in how they're popping, but once they do pop, you need to be ready to take action. So we'll work on that timing. I'll show you some times here in a second, Olivia, and hopefully it'll help out for your sister here coming up, because we are trying to battle out how much coverage we'll have here this afternoon, as the setup is certainly in place for an active evening for showers and storms. I don't think it's going to storm all evening on and all night long. Any one location, if I had to put a time to it, I'm saying 90 minutes, maybe your window, you would experience anything this evening and you'll be done. But so our alert day window is going to be several hours, but your impact, what you will go through, will be much more focused time period. So just kind of keep that in mind. But the alert day is out all the way through just before the midnight hour. Okay, for a good reason. This is the leftovers here of Beryl that has now moved into northern areas of Arkansas, moving into Missouri here very soon. It's a faded tropical system, but still it's got that natural spin to it. That takes forever to dial back. Same as running down the hill or having skates on and going down the hill and no way to stop. Same thing with this. It wants to weaken, but the spin nature is going to continue for a while. And now that it's spinning, but moving into a typical Ohio Valley hot summer day and humidity, that's not good, because now we have a trigger for showers and storms to feed on. And that's the reason why the tornado threat comes into play, and perhaps some very heavy rainfall in some areas. Now, the angle of the alerts is because of the track. It's going to be tracking to the northeast. So anywhere south and east of that track is where we need to watch for that potential for rotating storms there. I had a few this morning. Indiana looks to be a target, but really if it's Indiana or Kentucky, I think really, based on what I've seen, the enhanced risk makes more sense. It's going to be down toward Louisville, maybe E-Town, but we'll see what they do with the future updates later on for the day today. Just remember to keep the WAVE weather app handy. All right, we put the percentages in. We got a way to get you updated on the forecast side, but you need to have a way to get alerts. And the WAVE weather app will customize those for you. Even if it's heavy rain or lightning, you need to have those alerts. And the sun's coming back out, so you're going to get back in the pool, I'm sure. So make sure you have a way to get notified to get out of the water. All right, let's get you out there at the moment where we still have some of the leftover clouds from earlier as that band moved on by. Here is Beryl, or what's left of Beryl. Located again, moving into southern areas of Missouri. Not much on the southeast side. It's all on the northern and northwest side, because there is actually a warm front too stuck here. So they're kind of becoming friends at the moment. But as it makes that journey to the northeast, again, anywhere on that southeast side of that track is what we got to watch as it moves on by southern Indiana and Kentucky and eventually into Ohio. Anywhere along that and south, that's where you're going to get anything spinning. And fuel is another reason why you've got to be watching that, because things can spin all they want, but if they are not thunderstorms, then it isn't going to really be a huge issue. But we are indeed adding fuel right into that zone. So the combination of the two is what's led to that enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5. Really in our backyard, in the entire country, it's us. So there's that one supercell that really just is racing quickly. It's got enough shear with it. It should be long-lived, so it should go all the way into Ohio. We're lucky that it didn't get more rooted, or we would have a bigger problem here on severe weather. But it is moving out of our area, almost out of Carroll County. In fact, a few more trying to pop in Henry, but it's really going to be these bands here across central areas of Tennessee and Alabama. They'll be feeding northbound ahead of the leftovers of Beryl. That will be moving in as we head into about, say, 6, 7 o'clock all the way through the 11 o'clock hour tonight. And that's when you see the rain chance really spike up, is when that happens. Anything that pops in advance of it, yes, can become severe. That's why we made it red, but anything really in the evening hours is going to be our main focal point. Here we are, Futurecast, 7 o'clock. Here comes some of those bands moving in. Again, heavier rainfall, flash flooding, damaging winds, isolated tornadoes. We get past 11, and we can relax. and get ready to sweat. Oh, yeah. Oh, you knew it was coming. Yeah, this is just a brief interruption from the heat. So thank you, Beryl, for doing that. But after it moves out of the way, the doors open for the true reality of summer to kick back in with daily highs in the mid-90s with the heat index near 100. Isn't that lovely, Olivia?
Yeah, it just makes me sweat thinking about it.
Right, I'm sure.
Thanks, Brian.
Alrighty.
It's time for
With Alert Day coverage now, this is Wave News.
Thank you for joining us here for Wave News at 4. I'm Dawn G. The storm tracking team has flagged today as an alert day as the remnants of Beryl arrive in our area. Let's get to Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harnett, who has been taking care of us all afternoon. Kevin?
Yeah. Well, our whole team is here, Dawn. We've been watching this. We expected this today, and we still have the ability to see some strong storms. I'm going to roll you through the radar in a second, but first of all, take a wide view, and you can see every county that we serve under a tornado watch until midnight tonight. The atmosphere is primed for this. We have one warning in our viewing area. You look at all 33 counties. We have one severe thunderstorm warning that's moving across Crawford, Harrison, and Meade counties of Kentucky. Let me zoom into that for you, and we'll just go a little tighter in and show you that this storm has the potential to rotate. It's still moving away from some of the energy. It doesn't even have a lot of lightning associated with it, so it's pretty ragged at this point. When we look at the velocity to see if we have any rotation, no, not really. It's very broad. So the severe thunderstorm warning with that will continue lifting off to the north. That's going to take it into parts of western Harrison County, eventually across Interstate 64, west of Corydon. That storm, again, moving away from some of the available energy that we would be looking for to see these storms continue to strengthen. When we go back to our home view, we have additional storms back out to the west. These have been strong. We had one tornado warning earlier down across Adair County. That has weakened substantially. This storm weakening as it moves away. This storm is not weakening yet, and it's moving closer to our viewing area. That would be across western parts of Grayson County and Breckenridge County. That one bears watching. Notice lightning with that storm. Here in Louisville, we're still under a partly sunny sky. Our temperature is 90 degrees. It's hot, it's humid, we're pumping in plenty of moisture, and we have the remnant low of Beryl moving across the region. That means we have conditions that are right for severe weather, rotation in the atmosphere. Isolated tornadoes are going to be possible through the balance of the afternoon on into the evening hours. Our chances for showers and thunderstorms remain high through the evening, fading as the overnight wears on, temperatures dropping back into the low 70s and 60s for many in the suburbs. Dawn, while we have no tornado warnings now, everyone should be weather aware this afternoon. Obviously, with our team assembled here, we'll be on the air as soon as we need to be.
And we appreciate that, Kevin. We know things happen fast. Everyone, please pay attention. We want to keep you prepared. You can stay ahead of any kind of Wave Country weather when you download the Wave Weather app. We just want to keep you safe. Our storm tracking team gives you a heads up before that storm arrives so you can be prepared. That's what it's about. So start making plans now, honestly. The weather is a Wave Weather alert. The app is free on both Android and Apple devices, so stay with us. We will keep you safe. Our storm track you, Hill's Pet Nutrition, for providing that. Let's get straight to our Chief Meteorologist, Kevin Harnett, who is following this alert day. Kevin, the remnants of Beryl are moving through. You all will come straight to the public when something is happening, because in some places the skies may look a little menacing.
Yeah, well, here we are, and we already see that we have a warning that's just now out to the west of us. So this is just across parts of the area. I think Brian's working on that computer, so Max 1 will be where we're rolling through here. But that is one storm that is moving closer to Grayson County. So we'll be watching that closely as we move a little bit closer to our area. That said, it is an alert day, and with that will come the risk for more storms, some of those on the strong to severe side later this afternoon. We have the tornado watch in place. That goes until midnight tonight, so the threat isn't just in the near term. This will take us through the evening hours. I'm going to time that out for you and give you more radar views coming up here in just a second. Let's talk about that chance over the next 12 hours. Really, it's between now and about midnight where we see the greatest potential, increasing that to its its maximum in the evening, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. That's when we really have to pay close attention, all the way up till 10 o'clock. Once we cross 10, 11 o'clock, the chances for showers and thunderstorms in Louisville will come down. They'll be moving off to our east at that point. Again, with the alert day in place, we'll be focused until 11 o'clock to midnight. The watch technically goes until midnight for all of us. The tornado threat is there. We have the remnants of the low pressure. Beryl moving right across us. Lots of spin in the atmosphere. Some flooding. That's going to be possible. Heavy rain, tropical moisture. And we also have the isolated damaging wind gusts. The worst of the rain and flooding look to be off to the northwest of us, however. Our main issue could very well be the tornado threat. We are in the enhanced risk area across many of our counties. That will be 3 out of 5 from the Storm Prediction Center. And we're already into the next phase of that, which is watches and then following warnings. So you've got to pay attention today. We've got the tornado threat as the highest threat, followed by wind and flooding, and then hail because of the warm nature of this, everything melting really. We don't have a whole lot of hail to worry about with scenarios like this. All right, hour by hour through the evening hours, we'll see our temperature drop from 90 degrees back into the 80s, 70s, 60s. You already noticed the rain-cooled air up at Bedford. It's 76 there. They'll bounce back. We're going to see breaks in the showers and thunderstorms. The satellite view shows where some of those storms are billowing up. Easy to pick out just even from the satellite view. When we look at the radar, you can see the thunderstorm that we're watching across parts of Crawford and Harrison counties. That comes with the tornado possible tag, by the way. Almost all of the severe thunderstorm warnings will have that today just because we have such rotation and twist in the atmosphere. This is the storm we're also watching. That's going to move into western parts of Grayson County. That tornado warning may very well get extended back up to the north and east, clipping Grayson and Breckenridge counties. So we're watching that closely. That would be next in line for the tornado warning. The only warning that we have in our viewing area is the severe thunderstorm warning for now. And that, as I mentioned, was for Crawford and Harrison counties. Wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. That warning will go until 4:30, so another 10 minutes on that warning. When we look at the velocity, gives us an idea of the rotation within that storm. It has some rotation, so they've maintained that tornado possible tag as this continues to move across southern Indiana. That storm may very well continue with its severe thunderstorm warning and could intensify over time. We'll first notice that we're tracking a couple of bands in here. You can see the spirals almost. There's one. This is the next one. This is the one that moves in later tonight. So again, when we check the radar, we're going to have those showers and thunderstorms ahead of that main line that's way out in West Kentucky that would pose a problem through the rest of this afternoon and evening. Those would likely be the most severe or the strongest of storms. So that's why we have a very close eye on the storms that are on the radar right now. Those are preceding the line that moves in. The tornado potential, notice why across southern Indiana. That's a zone where we have the one storm moving into. That again is energy that we need for those storms to continue to develop. We're seeing that. As the night wears on, it increases across parts of southern Indiana and eventually moves with that low pressure to the north and east. So it bears watching right through the evening hours. We're just in the beginning stages of seeing these individual cells that have the potential for severe weather. This is the line, but out ahead of that line are the ones that we'll watch. That will move through eventually by, I'd say, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and then it's past us, moving out of the area by midnight, and then things are much calmer as we look ahead to the extended forecast taking us into the weekend. Temperature's going to warm back up after that as well. Our winds tomorrow, by the way, gusty, coming in from the west, anywhere between 25, 35 miles an hour. We're at 90. Plenty of heat, plenty of energy. Winds gusting to 21 miles an hour. The alert day in place. Severe storm threats will continue right until 10, 11 o'clock tonight. The 69-degree low replaced with a high tomorrow with a breezy day at 83. The showers and thunderstorms will be scattered tomorrow. You'll see our temperatures fall into the 80s for tomorrow, hold upper 80s Thursday, but then we're right back into a stretch of 90s. Takes us into another heat wave, Dawn. That includes the weekend with high wind out of this, but it's going to go just off to your west. This passes into western parts of Grayson County before lifting up toward the Falls of Rough. So if you've got friends or family, and I've been to Rough River my whole life, life. So if you have friends or family there, cell service is spotty. Give them a call, give them a heads up. Regardless if this holds together or not, it's going to be moving right toward the lake. So just give them a heads up. They've got enough time right now. They're a ways away, probably at least a solid half hour, if not 45 minutes away from seeing that storm arrive. So I'm sure they'd all appreciate a heads up. Just have them turn on a Wave. You can get us streaming. We're the only station in Louisville that has a 24/7 streaming weather channel. Wave Weather Now, easy to find. So we're on that. We are watching this storm as it moves off to the north and northeast at about 25 miles an hour. At this point, this is the only tornado warning that we have. Well anticipated because of the rotation that showed up. Now, I mentioned our other tools. We have the debris signature. This gives us the what we call the correlation coefficient. It's algorithms within the radar that help us detect debris. We see none at this point. We'd be looking for the more likely signal where we have the strongest rotation. So we don't see that. That's good news. Oftentimes, even dust or debris that gets lofted into the air, we can sometimes spot. Sometimes you hear us talk about the debris ball that's on the radar. This is what that would show up in. So the good news is we don't see that. Now, when we look at any reports that we've had at this point out of this storm, you're going to see none. We're going to go back to our home view. And when we go to the home view, let's just see if we have any. We've got one tree that looked like it was downed earlier. That of course, came just across southern Indiana. That was with that morning round of heavy rain and wind. Additional tornado reports have been indicated back across West Kentucky. All right, so we have had some reports of severe weather within the region today. When we look at other reports that we have, we often hear us talk about, well, let me go back here. You hear us talking about MPING and those reports that come in. They're very helpful to us. Let's just take a look at those wind reports just to see if we've had any. Unlikely. Yeah, not seeing any wind reports across the area. You'd see these icons show up, trees down, snapped, uprooted, destroyed. Nothing like that. So good news at this point. I was really looking at these storms out to the west of us, and we have none of those. Back to our radar view we go, and then you can see that really is the only player in the game right now, and that is the tornado warning across western parts of Grayson County, southern Breckinridge County. Let's go over to Brian, who's been keeping an eye on really the inside of that storm.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Yes, in fact, the two that are here in Grayson County, it is two. It's like twins that are moving in the state. Now, only one of them has the tornado warning out. The western side, northwest side of Grayson County touches right into Breckenridge. There is one over Caneyville that I'm watching as well. It's not quite as structured as far as organized as the one to its left. However, it is starting to produce what we call a shear marker, indicating there's certainly got some rotation with that. So there is a chance with the two. You can see them just the shear markers alone. If it continues to try to get that structure organized a bit more, because there's nothing really around to disrupt that one that's over Caneyville, there is a chance another warning could get issued right over Grayson. So just kind of a heads up. If you're in Caneyville and Litchfield, no warning right now. Storm's not quite to that point, but it's getting closer, and that's what I'm watching for. Is a trend. How are we trending? Trending in a worst case scenario as far as the current situation, or is it improving? In this particular one, it is not improving. So that's telling us that we need to watch it for maybe a secondary cell. So Kevin, we may have more than one there in Grayson if they continue to get that structure. In fact, one, it's, as you know, it's tough to have two of them side by side. One of them is going to have to win. They fight out the environment. We just are trying to gather which one's going to win this battle here.
Well, and sometimes while that fight happens, we wind up seeing either a merger where one gets wiped out, or where they both sort of fizzle a little bit. So we'll just have to see what happens. The idea today is there are going to be multiple of these storms, and one may take over from the other, or one may linger a little bit longer than the other. So I would suspect that we're going to see more and more of these tornado warned storms pop. Right now, it's just the one across parts of western Grayson County, southern parts of Breckinridge County. Zoom back in. Lightning still very visible on the map. We have no confirmed reports of damage out of it. We're on the phone. We're making calls. We appreciate everybody that's answering those calls, and we try to do that respectfully where we're not interrupting emergency calls. So it's all about a fine dance to get the information out while we're not hindering emergency response. We understand that. You can see that this storm still has a hook. It's still very well pronounced. This would be the inflow into that storm, but somewhat blocked by the other storms. So it's becoming a little less pronounced than it was earlier. That tornado warning goes until 5:15 this afternoon. I'm going to just go back to the velocity as we keep sort of juggling back and forth. We still see that rotation complete on the radar. The other one, not so much. But if you look, that's a little red. And the way velocity works is when we take the radar, we have winds that are inbound and outbound, toward the radar, away from the radar. When we go toward the radar, we can see that obviously when it's toward and away in the same location, that must mean rotation. So that's why in this zone here, the greens are toward, the reds away. That's where we see that the greatest rotation. This one, not quite as defined, but moving right toward Caneyville would be where we do see some rotation. And just know that the radar scans only come in every so often. And with that, one scan can make a big difference. So it can change fairly fast. Even though the storms are moving slow, what's happening within the storm is constantly in motion. So we're watching that. And that's where we have the rotation now moving right across the county line. So we said this would go from Horse Branch. It's north of there. It's just now moving across the western part of Grayson County. Then it will eventually make its way up toward Axtell as you work your way toward Rough River Lake and the state park there. So if you heard us a while ago, make sure folks there understand. Not always in front of a TV, don't always have the best cell service at the lake there. So let people know what's going on in advance. All right, I'm going to go back to our home view. Let's put the velocity off and the radar on. Back to the home view. Want to check the storm across southern Indiana. That one has just been sort of floating. It's maintaining itself. It's not really anything serious, though there's a severe thunderstorm warning with it. I'm going to zoom back into that. And then we'll get to Brian for an update now that he's watching that storm. This one, again, is barely holding on. This is on life support here. They've not reissued a warning with this. They have been sort of keeping that warning going, but at this point, it's producing moderate rain. Winds are out of the southeast, gusting to 21 in Louisville, so our winds are picking up just a bit. The velocity on this, tough to tell. Looks like a bad scan there, but perhaps over Fredericksburg, just a slight rotation. That's going to be right along 150. We'll watch this storm. We'll see if the warning gets extended. Part of me says that it will not. And then we go back to the radar view. Let's go and get an update on what's happening with that southernmost storm with Brian. So I'll keep an eye on that one.
All right, thanks, Kevin. What I've got displayed here behind me now, these are actually the cloud tops of the thunderstorm. So what I'm looking for is to see our storms actually powering back up. Are they climbing in height, or are they beginning to collapse and weaken? There's no doubt you can tell that the one that's in northwest side there of Grayson County is the tallest one, has the most lightning with it at the moment. In fact, the current height right now on that particular one, as it's moving in just now to the border there on Grayson County, is coming in at about 45,000 feet. The one that's in the twin, and the other part, 32,000 feet. So up there, roughly 40,000 we're looking at for anything severe. So we know that one is at a severe potential. The one that is a twin, not so much yet. But it's getting a little closer. But let me animate this again, because I want you guys to notice. Look at the other cells around it, how they were listed as like a light blue or a darker blue, and suddenly they develop the yellows where they're climbing in height. They're all doing that in the same spot, right? So it's roughly around Muhlenberg County once again, all the way close to Grayson and now into southern areas of Breckenridge. But you do not see that happening in Indiana with those cells. They are not doing that. They are staying relatively flat on their height and relatively low top there. So right now, these are the strongest ones in the entire region right now, Kevin, other than the one I should mention that was in Morganville, Kentucky, that apparently did touch down, and I think it's done damage already there in northwest Kentucky. Not a threat to any of our counties. Just want to mention that that is something that may be talked about. So.
Yeah, and you know, the tough part about looking at that in your explanation is if this stays on track, that's going to take it very close to the metro, Brian. Now, that's a long ways away if that were to happen. This is not the only line of storms we're watching. We still have storms that will develop out to the west and continue to develop through the evening hours that will roll in here as well. So just because you're not seeing storms now does not mean you will not. This is the beginning stages of the day. We started at around 3 o'clock with one tornado warning for Columbia. That was across parts of well, just south of Columbia, southern Adair County. No damage reported there. Had some rotation that was broad that showed up on radar. That moved over into Russell County and faded away. We've had other thunderstorms across southern Indiana that have produced a little in the way of damage. Earlier this morning, we had the one that produced a tremendous amount of rain and some wind, and that actually took down a couple of trees in southern Indiana. And now the story is the thunderstorms that can get rooted into the atmosphere that we have with the remnants of Beryl moving through. We have the rotation, we have the southern push of wind, we have the moisture, we have everything needed. And the fact is, as we've climbed into the low 90s today, we have plenty of instability. It sometimes takes a little while for that to be released in the atmosphere, but as that happens through the rest of the late afternoon and evening, these thunderstorms will continue to grow. And we're going to see more and more of these in this zone. And then as the energy is transferred farther to the north, this will become the zone. So that's what we'll be watching as this unfolds. You can see they've trimmed up the tornado warning off to the south. I'm going to zoom back in for you. This is the only tornado warning that we have in the viewing area, second one of the day. And you can still see it's maintaining its hook on that. So the inflow into the storm, Heights Falls, Falls of Rough, lots of heavy rain and lightning pushing up toward the lake. The greatest potential for the tornado would be just south of there. Let's go to the velocity view. We punch up the velocity. You're going to see it right in this area. There it is. That's Heights Falls. That pushes up near Falls of Rough. We're keeping a close eye on the folks that may be away from their electronics, right? It's easy if you're in the house watching TV. It's not easy if you're out camping. It's not easy if you have no cell service. So those folks have our attention because this is a pretty hefty storm moving in their direction. We've been on the phone with a lot of folks this afternoon. Ryan Hoke's been tasked with that. Let's get an update.
Yeah, Western Grayson County here. Thanks to Kerry Sims, emergency manager down there in Western Grayson. He says they're watching a couple of camera feeds live on the ground right now. They do not see anything touching the ground with this storm in Western Grayson County. So no tornado there just yet. We've also had a report from a viewer on our Facebook live stream saying that the tornado sirens are going off in Hardinsburg. Hardinsburg is not in the warning at this time, but southwestern parts of Breckenridge is. So that's downstream, though. So be prepared in Hardinsburg. You may not be under the warning now, but that may be coming at some point if that storm continues there, Kev.
All right, pretty good wind moving right into the Falls of Rough, the Rough River Lake area. We can see that based on the velocity. We do see some rotation with the storm. It's not a completely tight couplet, so that's what we're watching, scan by scan. Does this tighten up and become a tornado that could possibly touch down? Well, that's certainly possible, but for now it's a pretty good wind maker that's moving its way off to the northeast at about 20 miles an hour. Rough River Lake is in the crosshairs of this as it will make its way from Heights Falls right up to Falls of Rough, and that is where we're seeing the rotation as that lifts up to the north and east. I'm going to go back to the velocity, or out of the velocity and back to the radar, to show you that the little hook, the appendage that we saw on that storm is not in the exact, it's a little more washed out. So it's likely being robbed by some of this storm. And while this may look like a hook on that storm, that wouldn't be the structure we would look for. It would be if that were rotated around, but that's a little bizarre. So let me go back to a wider view on that and just explain what's happening. As we zoom out, that's why there's no warning for that storm. I was going to try to zoom out that way. That did not work. Back to our home view, then we'll zoom in. As we come back into that storm, I'll put both. And now we have 3 storms in Grayson County. So you've got 1, 2, now the southern edge 3. These 2 are not severe. This storm, while that looks like that may be curling around, that's not the typical hook echo that you would hear us talk about. We do see plenty of lightning with this storm. This storm has the best structure on the map right now. Brian, what are you taking a look at?
Yeah, I was trying to get a camera feed up. We do have Kentucky Mesonoid cameras actually there in Grayson County. We're going to get that up here in just a second because one of them is actually right in the path of the one that's in Caneyville. What you're looking at, again, is the shear markers indicating the wind fields for rotation, and certainly see the path of the one that triggered the tornado warning that is now just about to move out there of Grayson County. And the one in Caneyville that just crossed the parkways, Western Kentucky, now heading into Litchfield. The lightning count has gone up. Yes, when you look at the structure of the storm, it is indeed, though, let me switch over to a different side. The storm has got the hook on it, but Kevin's right, it's on the opposite side, what you normally can expect on that. So we'll see how these all interact, because now that we got 3 involved there, it's going to get quite the
Grayson
traffic
County's
jam.
up on max 3 there, by the way, if you're looking for that camera view there.
All right. Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much. There it is, 84 degrees. And again, Kentucky Mesonet, WKU, they're able to put some cameras out where some of the temperature sensors are. These are still cameras, not exactly, it's west of Litchfield. I would assume it's facing west as well, but I can't really tell too much at the moment. As the storm is really past now, the camera on the right-hand side there kind of split. But there's several more moving into Grayson. So as long as we can keep it this way, Kevin, we can keep it kind of messy, maybe we can cut down on some of these storms getting a little bit out of control. It's when they're by themselves that they become a big problem.
And the reason for that is because for folks at home, that's when they have the whole atmosphere to tap into. Right now, this storm is trying to rotate. That's the one with the tornado warning. It has been rotating. It is still rotating. That's the definition of the supercell. The supercell is a rotating thunderstorm, all right? So we have this storm rotating, but it's sort of being robbed by some of that from this storm here and maybe even the one to the south. With that said, you can see it is messy. These are already starting to connect. This is going to be a big rainmaker. So instead of it having that tighter rotation, you imagine it like a spinning top, right? And the more momentum that you can give it, the faster it will go. That storm is trying to, but this one's hindering it just a bit. So it's not able to spin as freely as it was earlier. Consequently, we're starting to see that rotation and that diminish just a bit. All of that is good news. We're watching the rotation, and you can see it just sort of broadening out just a bit. So some good news as this storm approaches northern parts of, well, it would be extreme northwestern parts of Grayson County and southwestern parts of Breckinridge County. All right, back to the radar and back to our home view. And then we will go to our home view and point out on this that we still have one severe thunderstorm warning to the north. That one still in play for just a bit longer. Harrison, Crawford, and Washington. Okay, that one, they've just expired. So that one has gone. No warning there. It'll take a little bit of time to fall off of our maps because when the Weather Service sends the warning, it unfortunately, when they expire early, it does not capture them always. So that one's gone. There's no threat there. This is the only one. And notice that is where the core of the lightning is. That's the only storm at play in our whole viewing area. We've got one over western Clark County that's trying to develop just a bit, but the one to the south that's sort of getting torn apart by the collision of those two storms is becoming a little disorganized as well. Now, when we take a look back out to the west, we still have tornado warnings across West Kentucky. This is the line of storms that will move through very late tonight. So this is that 10, 11 o'clock storm that moves in. It's everything that's out ahead of it that's problematic. These storms that are firing are moving into an area that's untouched for many. You can sort of see the structure of that. Obviously, we've got the area of low pressure out here. So these are like bands of storms that are coming around that. And the individual ones, as they rotate up and move to the north and east with the low pressure, they're running into some environment that hasn't been tapped into today. We've had some sunshine, we've got the heat, we've got the moisture, we have the energy needed, and obviously we have the sort of twist in the atmosphere with the area of low pressure. So we're going to continue to see this through the evening hours. We will likely see more of these become tornado warned. More will pop up like we're seeing, more like the one in western Clark County. Let's go to that one. Go back to our home view, and then Brian will walk us through the future cast of what to expect in terms of timing and what it's going to be like in your backyard. All right, we go back to Jefferson County, go north. We'll take a look at the warning that is now expired. That is completely fizzled out. Salem going to get a little rain out of that. We've got rain falling south of Henryville, just off to the east of Borden. We'll watch that storm, but likely going to collapse as it moves further to the north. The available energy for these storms much stronger just off to the south and southwest. Brian?
All right, thanks, Kevin. You mentioned Futurecast. This is, when we get too close to an event like this one, and we're in the event, right? It's hard to use a lot of modeling because it just really is, at that point, useless, this close in range. There are a couple of exceptions to that, and one is very much a high-res model that we look at that updates every single hour. So it's taking in the current scenario and tries to apply it in the hours ahead. So if there's any obvious trend or a shift, you start to see that in this particular model. So I'm going to show you guys it. So we're looking at it together for the first time. Let me advance it. It's currently showing, 4:30 on that. All right, let's move it over. Here we go, 6 o'clock. You see it's trying to develop two different areas of supercells that try to connect together. One that seems to want to arc from around Tell City down toward Munfordville, and the second one, which is the main line, still in West Kentucky. We move up, and the tornado warning, yeah, I see it now. Tornado warning, Kevin, hold on 1 second. I'll get right over to it. Again, this is going to be out for Breckenridge and Grayson County. This is going to be out until 5:45 Eastern time. Is that for the tornado warning that is out?
It's going to include Hardin County as well there.
Okay. Yeah, see Hardin. Sorry about that. West Central Hardin County until the 45 minutes after the hour, 5:45 Eastern time there. This is still, by the way, a radar indicated rotation on that one, Kevin.
This is that southern one that you were talking about, Brian. So remember we said they were merging together. This was the first one.
This is the Caneyville one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, oftentimes the southern system wins out. Why? Because the southern flow of the wind, right? That it's pumping the moisture into it. It's pumping the wind into it. It cuts off the one on the forward side. This is the one that now shows a better ability to intensify in the atmosphere. We look at the rotation on that. Moving in the same direction, displaced just off to the south, and there is now rotation on the southern side of that storm. So it was in its cycle. Remember we said, well, that rotation's there, but it's not in the right place, so it was cycling around, and now you can see. And if it can stay there, that would be the zone to watch, taking it right across not only northern parts of Grayson County, but into now southeastern parts of Breckenridge and far western parts of Hardin County, up toward Howe Valley, Centerview. This is going to move very close to Litchfield. The lake is still in play here by both of these storms, so hopefully you took the advice we gave and called people that you knew down at Rough River Lake. It's over top of them now. When we look at the reflectivity, see how much more jagged that storm looks, but when you look at the wind, you still see that rotation showing up. So now the question is, how will this all interact as we bring these storms together? As we bring this together, will it form one large supercell? Will one completely fade away? Yet to be determined on that. We will continue to watch these storms sort of coalesce together over the next few scans of the radar. Important to know what to do if you're in this tornado warning. Brian?
That's right. And for those of you in parts of Breckenridge and for the first time today in Hardin County, you may be hearing the rate signs, maybe for the NOAA weather radio go off. So as always, we want to make sure everyone's clear on what you need to do, and it varies on where you're at. But in general, you want to get to the lowest level of the home. That is step number one. Get away from it. If it's a two-story building, multi-level, get to the first level. A basement, even better. If you only have one level to work with, the next thing you need to decide and look around is to find an interior room, a room that does not have any contact with the outside world. And usually that's going to be a closet or a bathroom. In fact, bathrooms, I can't tell you how many times I've seen tornado damage, and the bathroom is usually the only room left standing. So the bathroom is a great place. Put on some shoes in case there would be some breaking glass, especially if the kids been running around playing. It's been a hot day today. Make sure they got some sandals on or flip-flops or something on their feet to protect them, and then get everyone into that safe spot, and hopefully this will pass on by and not ever touch down, because right now this is still radar indicated. But just a reminder again, if you're going to be heading out, be aware of those safety procedures. Take them and apply them anywhere you go. There's that tornado watch. It's out for everyone, of course, until the midnight hour there, Kevin.
All right, Brian, thank you. We've got our eyes to the radar this afternoon. Tornado warning. This first one has now expired. We've transitioned the energy to the southernmost part of that storm that moved across Caneyville, now working its way into northern parts of Grayson County. It's going to go just north of Litchfield. You can see the heavy rain. You can see the lightning with that storm, both of them producing about 27 strokes of lightning within the last few minutes there. We go to our velocity. We can see where the rotation is showing up. And yes, it's very clear where that is now, and strengthening, by the way. So we continue to watch this zone for a strong rotation on the radar. It's going to go right to the split of the counties where we have Breckenridge to the west and Hardin to the east, working its way right up along that county border, Breckenridge and Hardin counties. You've got to be in your tornado safe place. That is a very strong rotation signature that we have on the velocity, not as sharp as what we saw previously from the other storm on the reflectivity, but coming in on the velocity, which is typically more helpful. You can see that we are dealing with rotation. Now, question is it on the ground? Don't know that yet. Again, that's where reports come in. That's where making those phone calls become very helpful. Ryan Hoke's been on the phone with folks down in parts of Grayson County. Let's see if we have any ground truth from that storm. Anybody seen any type of lowering of the clouds or any type of damage?
Well, Kevin, even better than that, there is a live storm chaser feed that I've been monitoring, and so far nothing on the ground. He is literally just south looking into the mouth of that storm that was just newly tornado warned in Grayson County. This is the Grayson County Kentucky Mesonet camera there. You can see how dark it is in the distance there, but we are going to continue to monitor those video feeds and get on the phone here and give you the latest on the ground truth of what's going on in Grayson County.
All right, well, hopefully we can reach out to that storm chaser. Maybe we can get him on the air. We'd love to see what it looks like there. Our storm tracker staying local today because we have the threat of severe weather all across our area. So we're monitoring these storms by radar from this far away. Brian is really diving into the heart of that storm. Let's just go over it. Brian, you and I will analyze this. Let's bring you into the conversation here. Sure. I'm going to zoom in just like you are, and we will keep a close eye on the velocity. What Brian and I are both doing, so it doesn't matter if you take the key behind me or Brian's computer, looking at Hanging Rock. This is where we have that greatest rotation, and Brian, this is the strongest we've seen all day.
Indeed, and you're looking at the colors in a sense of the brighter colors as far as the blues or the greens, if you will, is the wind that is actually blowing toward the radar, red blowing away, and that's from the radar site that's there at Fort Knox, indicating to us that there's obviously, when they're side by side like that, that tells us the same as if you were to put a pencil into your hands and you move your hand one way, move the hand the other, your pencil rotates. Same thing happens to a cloud or a column of air. In this case, a very strong updraft has been taken and tilted, and that's the reason why that the radars are designed to trigger tornado warnings, or at least alert us of that, as we don't know if it'll tilt to the point where it'll form and actually touch down, or does it just stay a strong rotation aloft and not touch down. That is heading right through Hanging Rock to the north. It looks like it's going to move right into Centerville. Now, the reason why I think the path is a little wonky here is that because we have other cells around it, so that may cause another cycle of this storm to continuously adjust its rotation field. So, you know, we're saying right now this is the general idea where it's heading, Centerville or to Pierce Hill, as you transfer over a little more into Hardin County. But you got to keep in mind, it will likely wobble a bit or redevelop in a new spot. So it's not a clear-cut path like you would if we were to have had a bigger system on the ground or a tornado on the ground. And that's a good thing. We don't want one on the ground because it is aloft. It does have a little more of an impact there of a kind of shifting around a bit. But that's why the warning is out for a larger area. So you need to be ready just in case it does shift in direction or falls apart and redevelops. So that's why the rest of Breckenridge County and Hardin County were included in that, is that idea, that wobbling, Kevin.
Well, and it's, you know, if you were to just draw a trajectory of that, it's moving northeast at about 35, so they're picking up a little bit of speed. That's going to take it, again, right across 259. It's pretty much there now. This is one you certainly need to be in your tornado safe place. That's the lowest level. That's away from all windows for sure. Additional thunderstorms have not strengthened anymore across southern Indiana. When we talk about the warnings that we have, these are the current warnings. The tornado warning still for another 41 minutes. That includes Breckenridge, Grayson, and Hardin. That other warning that was previously just off to the west has been allowed to expire. This is the current radar map. You can see 27 lightning strikes across the counties that we serve. Additional tornado warnings are firing with those supercells back across southwest Indiana and west Kentucky. The one we're watching is the southernmost storm now into parts of Grayson County, lifting into southeastern parts of Breckenridge and far western parts of Hardin County. That is the storm of concern for us. The one that previously had the tornado warning, you can see it's all flattened out. This one stole the show. We talked about how that would happen, and certainly that's what unfolded. Sometimes it works out like that. Sometimes both of them just wind up being heavy rainmakers. But you can see this one had no lightning, and now it has all the lightning. It also has great rotation showing up. And when we go to the velocity, you can clearly see that. I'm going to zoom in a little more, and then we're going to look at not only the velocity, but we'll take a closer look to see if we see any debris showing up. Again, you can see that rotation right over Cobbler's Knob, McCoy, Centerview. This storm is moving right in your direction. So it's passing. This is Rough River Lake. There's Axtell. There's Hickory Corner, Cannons Point. This is going to be just off to the east of the lake as it moves up to the north and east, about 30, 35 miles an hour. In our tools, we can pull up the debris signature. Let's just see if the debris shows up anywhere. Good news is we don't see it. So that's positive. It means the radar is showing it, but it's showing nothing being lofted into the air that's abnormal. So that would be, can be anything from dust to pieces of trees or homes or whatever. So anytime odd things that bounce back that radar signal, that would show up in a blue to white color would be what we're looking for in there. And the good news is we don't have it. So when we go back to the velocity, again, it's just a constant repetitive motion, reflectivity, velocity, CC. That's the correlation coefficient. That's the debris. And then reports. Are we getting any reports? And so far we've had none. We've got eyes on the storm from storm chasers that are out and about. Trained storm spotters are very important to us during these types of scenarios. You can see that storm is still showing rotation, but it's much broader. Remember a while ago it was the brightest of the blues showing up right next to the reds. Well, that's broadened out quite a bit at this point. So
it's almost like a downburst signature showing up more.
Exactly,
now.
Because here's, this was a little bit here, and then you get the reds away and then the greens towards. So you're right. When we look at that, still dealing with some powerful winds, the translation down to the surface could be a little different in terms of just sort of spilling out or rotating and touching down. All right, so that is the tornado warning. We still have another 37 minutes left technically on that warning. Well, certainly with this, they're going to keep the tornado warning, but if this should sort of broaden out and weaken, that tornado warning could expire early. I don't want to get into that game yet. That hasn't happened. I don't expect that to happen with this storm, but it could. Back to the home view. While I'm doing this, let's go over to Brian and get an update.
Yeah, and that's the thing. These are, hopefully they continue to weaken, but it's looking more and more likely this is going to be at least a period of rain and thunderstorms that should make it into the Louisville area based on its current track. I would say roughly in about hour and a half, 90 minutes or so, we should have them approach into southern Jefferson County. As just rain is what I'm talking about. I'm not saying severe. We don't know what shape they'll be in by the time they get here, but they should at least hold together to give us a period of rain and thunder. If they hold that track, it looks like they will do just that. But you got to keep in mind the environment, the center here of the remnants of a barrel are actually located just east of St. Louis. So once you get past this band of rain right here that stretches out near the LBL area of Kentucky, once you pass that, you've changed the wind flow up, you're out of the tornado threat completely. So it's only until that passes by, and you got to treat it as like a cold front would be. So this is roughly about 4 to 5 hours away from really just kind of sweeping in. Until that happens, though, the wind field around the center here of Beryl itself, these winds are being pulled against the grain or being pulled backwards, and that is not a natural thing for a thunderstorm to face, and therefore you get turning and twisting, and that's why you end up with a tornado threat, and that's why you only see the red polygons, the tornado warnings, only on the southeast side of the track. That happens to be in our backyard today.
Yeah, and that's why we're so, it's why we're all here. One, it's something we've been watching for days now. Good news is no power outages yet being reported. 93 right now in Louisville, 93 Lebanon. We've got the heat. That provides a little energy. We've got the moisture. Dew point gives us an idea of that. We're in the low 70s, some places mid 70s. So a juicy atmosphere, especially back where we're seeing these storms fire, and that will be the case as they translate into parts of southern Indiana. This is the zone where we have the abilities for these storms to continue to blossom. The greatest storm energy is in that area. The tornado warnings are in those areas as well. The severe thunderstorms with the tornado warnings, all we have. No other just regular severe thunderstorm warnings. Nope. It is just a tornado warning. This includes 3 of our counties, Grayson, Breckenridge, and Hardin. This is lifting up right along that view. It's easier for me to show you on the velocity where the strongest winds are, so I'll punch those up, and then you can see that rotation showing up right pretty much now into southern parts of Breckenridge County and right along that border of Hardin County. All of this is north of Litchfield at this point. Let's go over to Ryan Hoke.
Okay, Kevin, just off the phone with Grayson County Dispatch there. They said no reports of damage right now. However, she did say there is an unconfirmed funnel cloud report. They cannot verify what has been seen here. Oftentimes, these scud clouds can look like a funnel cloud, but they're actually not. So they're trying to figure out what happened there. But so far, no reports of damage in western Grayson County. I've also been in contact with a storm chaser down there, Bryce Shelton. Not been able to get in touch with him just yet, but hopefully he'll get back with us here, and maybe we can have him here on the air.
Yeah, we'd love to be able to see what he's saying. We always say in severe weather, there's nothing like ground truth. It's an important thing for everybody that's watching to know, because it's easy to do. Everybody carries one of these around now, and if you have the Wave Weather app, you scroll down, you can take a video or a photo of it, send it to us. We can get it on the air. It's even more helpful if you turn the phone sideways so it fills up the whole television screen. But regardless, we appreciate your reports, and that really does help us during severe weather. So we get all of that right into our computers, and that helps us analyze what's happening. We can have the best radars there is, but there's nothing like a set of these on the ground looking at it. If you've got a set of eyes on the storm or the sky, that really helps out. We can see additional severe thunderstorm warnings coming out. This is going to come right up to the viewing area. So this is for parts of Ohio County that sits just off to the west of Grayson and Breckenridge. The storm that we're most concerned with, we're still tracking it through the tornado warning. This will continue for another 30 minutes. That's moving right over the Centerview area. That's situated just off across southeastern parts of Breckenridge County, right very close to the Hardin County line. So Elizabethtown, this is a decent amount of distance to your west. So you're not in the path of this storm for folks that may be thinking Hardin County could be in the path. I'm going to go back to the radar. Let's just jump back to our home view. We'll point out the storms that are firing back across West Kentucky. The lone warning that we have out of our 33, 34 counties that we have is the tornado warning. It spans now really across 2 counties. That's Breckenridge and Hardin. It's pretty much out of Grayson County at this point. They'll be trimming that back as the storm makes its northeastward movement. It's moving at about 25 to 35 miles an hour, and as that progresses to the north and east, that takes it right along the county lines from Breckenridge and Hardin counties. That's the storms that we have at play. We've been talking about our temperature today at 93 degrees. Our atmosphere has been untouched since this morning. We had thunderstorms, pretty good thunderstorm moved through downtown, skimmed northeast Jefferson County, parts of southern Indiana with some gusty winds. But since then, we've had some sunshine. These storms need that for the fuel. And Brian's keeping an eye on the visible satellite imagery with the overlay of the storms. Kind of gives a good idea of why these storms are continuing to develop.
Yeah, and a couple of things there. You pointed out, we've been heated up. We've had a lot of sun. Look at what's happening. This is, again, looking from space. The clouds have blown off the storms in Grayson County to where it is now becoming mostly cloudy over Louisville. They've kind of sheared over us. That will be interesting to see what happens to the environment downstream of this complex of cells and how it may impact some of that fuel. We got still quite a bit, but still it's interesting to see it as going overcast thanks to these supercells. But we mentioned that one severe thunderstorm warning back into, I believe, Ohio County. This is something that I was looking at in a lot of the high-res, short-range weather models that we look at. This should connect right here as an arc. And that keeps standing out to me over and over again. If it does connect to an arc, that will actually sweep up, and it'll actually hit some of the same spots that have already experienced some warnings already. We may have to face that again. I'm talking about maybe additional warnings that could come out for maybe Breckenridge or portions of Breckenridge and Grayson, but maybe a little more into southwest Indiana this time around. We'll see what happens, but that seems to be a hot spot. It is trying to develop, Kevin. We'll see, because as you can tell ahead of that, there has not been any cloud cover blocking that particular path, but the clouds streaming toward Louisville, that'll be interesting to see what happens for us here in the next little bit.
Yeah, and that is interesting, because that's blow off from those thunderstorms. As the thunderstorms grow in height, the upper level winds carry the clouds forward because of the southerly winds pushing to the north. So we're seeing the blow off of the tops of those clouds reach as far away as Louisville from where those storms actually are. So that will help out, because if we can diminish the energy and sort of calm the atmosphere a little, it's always interesting to see how that combats the fuel that the atmosphere has. A couple of interesting points that Brian mentioned. First, the clouds. Second, this forming. We never expected the mid to late afternoon to be the prime time for these storms. We always thought it would be late afternoon into the evening hours. So we're just now entering that time period. This is when we start to see the atmosphere really begin to explode, if you will. And that's what we're noticing across the area with these tornado warnings. Now, does it look like what they saw yesterday down in Louisiana and parts of Texas? No. And that's not going to happen either, because that storm was so much stronger. In fact, it was still a tropical storm with very strong winds at the core of that storm yesterday at this time. But as the night wore on, it continued to produce tornado warnings into Arkansas, strong storms even into this morning. Things finally extinguished, and now we're seeing it build back up with the heating of the day. That's the way the atmosphere works. At the current time, we have one warning, the tornado warning that continues for parts of southeastern Breckenridge and far western Grayson County. Let's just jump back into that. I'm going to zoom back in. Lots of lightning with that storm. A tight view is going to show us where we have some rotation, and we'll go to the velocity on this. And when we look at that, you can see that strong push of wind very much near the center view area. That's going to be lifting right along the county line. So it's pretty much hugging the Breckenridge, Hardin County line, moving at about 35 miles to the north and northeast. I suspect that should this continue for the next 15 minutes, this gets extended further to the north. I can't imagine, with the way they've been warning things today, that this would not get an extension. From the emergency management group over in Grayson County, they say their office has received no reports of damage, and I know Ryan's been on the phone with them. They have fire departments out in this polygon, or in the warning, checking to see if there has been any type of problems. At this point, we have none to report. If you have something different, call our newsroom and let us know. Meanwhile, we're tracking this storm off to the north and northeast, 25 to 35 miles an hour. The only warning we have, showing signs of rotation, showing signs of strong wind. But at this point, you can just go back to the radar. It's a heavy rainmaker with lightning. We can see that for sure. And obviously inside, when we look at that velocity, we can see that couplet and the strong wind right over center view. That is one warning of many that we have when we look at the wider picture. Back to the west, severe thunderstorm, tornado, southwest Indiana. Let me pan this around just to see if we see any others. As we move the radar, you'll see the radar switch. Our radar data is good on the storms we're looking, because it's coming right from Fort Knox. Now, these storms out to the west, you'll watch those change. Boom. Now we're on the Evansville radar, and now that radar data is better, and you can see the core of the storm out near St. Louis. And pinwheeling around that storm, we have sort of these bands, these spirals. That's that one Brian mentioned would be coming together, right? So that makes sense. That's what we would see. This is the one that moves through late tonight. Once that gets past us, 10, 11 o'clock tonight, the show's over. In the meantime, we have to deal with what's developing in a very juicy atmosphere that will continue to grow. And that unfortunately means rotation because of the nature of this storm that we're dealing with. The rotation obviously provides the opportunity for tornadoes to touch down.
And Kevin,
yes.
Real quick, I just want to mention, I mean, interrupt you there.
You can interrupt me anytime.
The cells in Indiana, we've been tracking these because it's been an odd one to watch how that warning was going for so long. But when I looked at the shear markers, I could see why. You could tell that it was still having nothing off the chain here on its rotation, but it was still enough to be concerning as it still went by Palmyra, and that's why they kept the warning going. But notice we're starting to get hints of another shear marker with this one as well. As I said earlier today, this zone, Indiana, does not have as much fuel as Kentucky does, but it has a stronger wind field to work with right now that can cause some rotation, especially the row of counties near the Ohio River. So just wanted you guys to be aware that we're watching you all. I know these cells may be passing by. You may actually have some downpours. Looks like it went too far away from Huber's. You may have had a quick downpour move through. Nothing severe right now, but we are watching these individual showers. You have to do it. You have to babysit them one at a time like that. But at least we have a little bit of a reasoning now, Kevin, why that one was lasting so long over the river as a severe thunderstorm warning.
Yeah, I mean, it went on and on. It looked like it was weakening, but yeah, with the shear marker like that staying there. Well, obviously, we have the atmosphere where we have plenty of shear, especially back out to the west as we get closer to that area of low pressure. For us here at home, while some areas have seen thunderstorms, many have stayed dry throughout the day. Included in that, it's the airport, 93 degrees. Our winds only gusting to 27. That's going to change. This will likely clip at least part of Jefferson County as it lifts off to the north and east, at least in terms of rain. Can't say for sure that the tornado warning will hold, but it's a possibility. But the rain will be a better bet as it moves in, and especially later on this evening. Once we can congeal that line or that band of rain, that will move through. And most places get at least a dose of rain later in the evening hours, and that will push through. Looking at the local area, we're dry here in Louisville. It looks like most places around us have pushed into the 90s today. We're at 93 degrees. We've got 91 in Bardstown, Lebanon in the 90s. Obviously, where we have the storms, it's going to be cooler. Hardensburg at 79. We've got 80 at Seymour. Plenty of moisture, the dew point. That's where you start to get into the 70s, upper 60s and low 70s. It gets sticky. You start to get into the mid to upper 70s and even low 80s. That's just oppressive. So a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. Moisture provides heat. It's a latent heat release. That gives us energy in the atmosphere. So that translates to energy. So that's why we have not only the energy, but with the parent low pressure moving past pretty close. So even as that's passing by and slowly weakening, it's still strong. That gives us some rotation to deal with. So one storm now moving out of Clark County into southern Scott County. We're watching. No warning with that. The only warning happens to be the tornado warning off to our south. Let me jump back to that. Brian's keeping an eye to the north. We'll get a check with Ryan here in a second. And then I'm going to ask our producers where the storm tracker is so they can let me know that. But let's just zoom back in. Constantine, you are in this storm that's moving through Bruleyville. You're going to get clipped by the heaviest of rain. Strongest rotation stays off to your south. Let me go back to our velocity. And then you can still see it there. So it's now past Centerview. It's going to be moving up toward Four Corners. This is now passing Solway. It's right along the county line. We've said that. So it's just pretty much hugging that Breckenridge-Hardin County line. Irvington's going to stay out of the strongest of this. Hardensburg clearly out of the strongest. And Litchfield pretty much escaped both storms that they had across the county. Split one to the west and one off to the east. Let's go back over. I know Brian's been monitoring some of the storm chasers down that way. Any reports at all of any type of damage? Apparently, we've just seen it moving across the sky, which is fine with me.
Yeah, at this point here, Kevin, we haven't seen any sort of reports of damage. I have been monitoring, of course, one Storm Chasers live stream, Bryce here, and the structure that you're seeing in the sky right now, unfortunately, we can't show this to you because I think there's an exclusive license for a certain YouTube channel we all know about here. But the structure of the sky here has not been conducive to any sort of lowering that we've seen in there that would indicate any sort of imminent tornado with this at this time. That's just visually from a live stream. We have also been monitoring your comments here on social media. media. So thanks to all who are watching our Facebook Live and, of course, on Wave Weather. Now, a lot of folks are saying, why aren't the sirens going off? Why are tornado sirens going off? It has to do with what your county emergency manager wants to do, but only certain cities are within the tornado warning polygon here. So have the Wave Weather app. Don't depend on the sirens to know if you're under a tornado warning, Kevin.
All right, back to the radar views. I'll point out a couple of things. We mentioned those storms that moved through earlier, parts of northern Jefferson County, southern Indiana, northeast Jefferson over into Oldham County. We did have some trees down. I'm going to check in with David Mattingly coming up in just a few minutes here. But let me give you an idea of what the Weather Service is looking at when we go back to the radar. Talk about our home view here. You'll notice one thing, if you're observant on our maps, when we have a tornado possible with the severe thunderstorm warnings, you see a black outline around that. All right, that's just something that's visual for us to say, hey, we've got a severe thunderstorm warning, but there's a tornado possible with it. You'll notice that the black outline is now gone. So they've reissued that. The rotation has diminished enough to where the Weather Service says, all right, we're going to take that part away. So it's a constant checking game. What's the threat? What do we need to alert people? Well, clearly we have the tornado warning. There's been no damage reported. The velocity on this still shows up. I'm going to point out that one more time as we go to the velocity. And you're still going to notice while we have some broad rotation with that, it takes up almost the whole polygon. We'd be looking for something very tight in one location, not across the entire area. Yes, the storm is rotating, so we've got a supercell. That's a guarantee. We also have the potential to see some strong wind with this, but at this point looks to be a little broad. It's moving off to the northeast at about 35 miles an hour. We're keeping a close eye on that storm and all of the storms around us. Going back to the home view, I'm going to put the radar back on. That is the only warning that we have at this point. Storms going on southern Scott County. Notice the debris showing up with this storm southwest Indiana. That's one to watch. And notice the white outline on that storm. That's important to notice too. That means there's considerable damage with that storm possible. So it comes with a new tagline. So if we go back and I can punch up, let me just zoom into that storm. We'll go back to southwest Indiana. This is outside of the viewing area, so folks watching, this is out closer to Evansville, but you can see that debris signature. Let me see if I can put the velocity on. We'll look at that rotation. Yeah, see what I'm talking about there? See how tight that is? That's what you look for the tornado. Now, let's see if we can see any type of debris with that storm. Yes, a little bit showing up right there. So that would be why they flagged that one as a little bit higher up, right? So it takes a little bit more precedence. Now, that is outside of the viewing area. That's southwest Indiana. That is not here at home. Back to our home view. We're watching the one down in Breckinridge County. Let me get a quick check with Brian as he's analyzing parts of Breckinridge and Hardin counties. And then we'll go out to David Mattingly. He's with some storm damage from earlier today in Goshen. But Brian, let's take a close view of this and walk people through what you're watching.
All right. Yeah, we got some cells that are kind of jumped out ahead of the entire idea of what the leftovers and the remnants of Beryl are doing, which is really focusing more on Illinois, West Kentucky, and Southwest Indiana. These are just isolated cells in the flow already just beginning to pop. That's the reason why they're very sporadic, having a tough time maintaining, which is fine. We want them to do that. But what it also may be doing is allowing for such a messier setup there that Indiana, let me turn the satellite back on. I think Indiana is in a setup where you may end up with quite a few cells that could easily become supercells this evening. Now, we haven't talked much about the threat being overly high there in Indiana. I think it's the same really on both sides of the river. I just think that Indiana may end up taking over the show here for a while if these cells can form. My concern with that is they're going to become very much east-west in the orientation. So we'll end up adding on potential maybe some flash flooding that could develop with some of that. But the parameters are still quite high for areas of southern Indiana, and therefore you haven't had much action yet on cloud cover as far as avoiding it. So you've got a decent amount of heating going on. Still some heating in central Kentucky, but some of this is rain-cooled air at the same time that's kind of messing with the southern part of the state. So really, Kevin, our main focus is going to be just that lead cell that you've been tracking there, moving out of Breckinridge and Hardin counties. That one is still moving into environment, has nothing in its way. At the moment, we've got cloud cover. The question is, how much will that impact it in the next few moments or so? But at least it hasn't done a rapid intensification or a rapid decrease. It's kind of just holding its own here so far.
Yeah, similar to what the ones have been doing closer to and just north of the Ohio River. They're not going, full throttle, and they're not easing back a whole lot. They're rotating, and the fact is, that's the first step. You have to have that. So the question then is to just keep monitoring to see if it's tightening at all. Watch the lightning count. Though on a day like today, that's not extremely helpful because we're still having the rotation without the extreme lightning. Just the tropical nature of what we're dealing with. I'm going to zoom back into the radar one more time just to let folks down that way know we're watching it. I'm going to be watching it. And we're not going anywhere, by the way. I'm just going to show you that we still see, and it is tightening just a bit. So right over Pierce Mill, you can see that would be the tightening area of what we're watching. I tell you what I'd like to do is keep the radar up, but I do want to go to David Mattingly. So once we have that set where we can keep the radar in one of the boxes, and then we can get out to David, that would be nice, just because I want people to know we're still watching this storm. That said, as we look across the entire region, this is not going to be finished anytime soon. We're going to be watching these individual storms that you see back out to the west through the evening hours. Doesn't mean we're going to be on the air all evening, at least I hope not. For your sake, we don't mind. We're getting paid to be here all day anyway. So this is what we do. We're tracking these storms so we know we can keep you safe. And that's the thing with folks down in Hardin County, down in the far eastern parts of Breckenridge County. You've got to be in your tornado safe place. We say it all the time. Some people are like, oh, they're just talking. They just want to talk. No, we want you to stay safe. That's the whole name of the game here. When I zoom back into that, I'm going to put the velocity up, and then I'm going to bring in David Mattingly. He is out in Goshen. That's Oldham County, so it's nowhere close to this storm, but it is a place where they had some damage earlier today. David, give us an idea of what you're looking at. I know we had some heavy rain in particular, and evidently some strong wind gusts too.
That's right. This is off of US 42 here in Goshen, and you've been tracking all the things that are happening right now. This actually happened around lunchtime today. Torrential rain for a period of time, and in that, a big gust of wind that people are describing around here. And look at the damage that it did. This is a big pine tree right here. A huge couple of branches on the side of that tree just snapped off and fell down. There are tree crews here now trying to clean up some of the mess. And we're going to walk a little bit. It wasn't just here. There are some damage I can see in the neighborhood over here to this side. And over here, we're going to go around the equipment that's parked right here, the tree removers. You see the large stand of hardwoods here. That is part of a tree, about half of a tree that split off from the trunk and went flat. Over here to the left, another big pile of debris. That is part of the tree that just snapped. The top of it came out and went down to the ground. No damage I'm hearing about in this neighborhood, but as you can see, that storm, even though it was brief and very wet, it still packed some wind to make sure it left its mark on this part of Oldham County. Back to you, Kevin.
All right, David, thank you very much. Again, just shows that the potential that these storms have moving through with the tropical nature, lots of rain, some lightning, more importantly, the potential for wind and rotation. We're seeing the rotation continue to our south. This warning, if this radar stays like this warning gets extended. That would take it closer to Radcliffe, Fort Knox. That's going to take it eventually, if it keeps going, into southwest Jefferson County. I don't want to say that yet, but it's still a ways away. It's only moving at 30, 35 miles an hour, so that's quite a distance away to get into southwest Jefferson County, but it's possible. So just note that you need to keep checking back, all right? So if you're watching from southwest Jefferson County, note to self or set an alarm for every 20 minutes, check back in, all right, if you have things to do. Because we want to make sure that you know that this is moving off to the northeast. This is going to move right across Big Spring. It's going to push up toward Radcliffe. It's going to move across southern parts of Meade County. So if a new warning gets issued, it's going to include Hardin, Meade, likely Breckenridge again, and we'll see if it goes any further than that. But that would be one area of concern, those places that I just mentioned, as this rotation makes its way to the northeast at about 30 to 35 miles an hour. Back to the reflectivity. This gives us the rain and the lightning. You can see heavy rain spreading across all the way to Irvington. That stretches back over toward the Ohio River. In fact, to the home view we go. Louisville seeing 20-mile-an-hour gusts, but no rain in Jefferson County. Thunderstorms trying to develop northern parts of Oldham County. Looks like over into Trimble County. Additional downpours that we've been watching this afternoon, making its way into Scott County. New development in northern Washington County. Additional thunderstorms back out to the west. Strongest on the radar, southwest parts of Indiana.
And that one's on the ground doing damage.
That one is on the ground. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, nowhere near our viewing area yet. But it's moving just off to the west of Evansville, so we'll see how that tracks over time. But that's one that is certainly, you can see that outline of white. That's an indicator. Notice the difference. So just subtle things on the radar, the way we've designed it to look, so that when we just take a glimpse of this, we have an idea of what each of those tells us. All right. We've got a number of spotters across the area. We've got folks down in Custer looking around the area. 20, 30 miles an hour winds close to the Ohio River across parts of Breckenridge, Meade County. Nothing too obnoxious there. Even in the core of this storm where you have that lightning, we've had no reports of damage, and that's good news. So this storm, while it shows signs of rotation and while it could touch down, apparently it hasn't yet, which is fine. That's okay. Let's go to the velocity. You're going to see that rotation still there, moving not far from Howe Valley. This is pushing right up toward, as you work your way from Custer to Howe Valley, not too far from Four Corners, you're going to be next in line as this lifts off to the north. So that is the area of greatest rotation. That moves off to the northeast, 25 to 30 miles an hour. We've been at this since about 3 o'clock this afternoon when the first tornado warning came out. That was for Adair County. That was a storm that clipped south of Columbia, moved over into Russell County. Have had no damage with that one either. So that's good news. However, as you just saw with David Mattingly over in Goshen, trees are down there from a morning thunderstorm that moved through with no tornado at all. So again, these thunderstorms have the ability to bring tremendous amount of rain and wind, and because of the rotation and the twist that we have in the atmosphere, we have the ability to see these tornadoes touch down at a pretty rapid pace. All right, Ryan's been on the phone. He's been on social media. It's time to get an update from him as soon as he gets in place. We'll do that. Then we'll spin back around to Brian. On our home view, you can see what we're watching as we zoom back into the tornado-warned storm. Again, we're looking at the potential for increasing rotation, because that gives us the indicator. It's right over Vertrees right now, moving toward Big Spring. This is where we're watching. Still a little broad. No reports of damage. No reports of tornadoes on the ground. But we have had reports of low-hanging clouds. We've had reports of scud. And we've had reports of a possible funnel cloud. Let's go over to Ryan.
Yeah, speaking of those reports here, we do have a couple of pictures in, if we could get those up from the control room here, from Eric Stein. He's looking south and west from Litchfield there, and those pictures show kind of a lowering in the sky. I'll give you guys a minute there in TMP to get those up there. I know you've got them back there in that rundown there, but we continue to monitor these photos coming in from storm chasers, from folks who are on the ground sending us photos. You can send us photos live, by the way. There are the photos. Again, this is Eric Stein. This is near Litchfield, looking to the south and west. I don't believe that is a tornado. That looks more like a wall cloud or sort of a lowering there. I think there may be multiple photos there if we can advance to the next one there. But you can see he's quite a distance away there, and I just saw a new photo from one of the National Weather Service employees who lives in Vine Grove, and he has a photo that looks kind of similar to this one right here, but from more of a distance, again, showing kind of that lowering. It is a concerning sight, but as a storm chaser and a meteorologist, this does not immediately scream tornado to me, but there's lots of little scuddy appendages on the left there. There's your new vocab word of the day there. But Kevin will continue to look for these photos, and of course for folks to be submitting their reports via social media and the Wave Weather app.
Yeah, and you know, the tough part about all of the few photos that we showed, we couldn't see the base of the ground. So as it lowers, the one thing we always look for is, can we see the base? And unfortunately, by looking at those, there's no ways to tell. Obviously, they're lowering of the clouds. We can tell that. But whether something's on the ground or not, and I have a feeling we would have heard by now if that were the case. There'd be damage reports coming in. But nonetheless, we appreciate the pictures. We appreciate knowing and being able to visually see what's happening across the area. We continue to watch what's happening here with these storms. I'm going to keep an eye on the storm to our south that has the tornado warning. The question is, will this get extended? The Weather Service is still debating whether they're going to extend this warning or not. I have a feeling the answer is going to be yes. While we await that, let's go over to Brian, who's watching some rain close to the metro, just to our north.
Yeah, same little smaller cells have been holding together so far, jetting quickly through Indiana. This one right now is the strongest right over Scottsburg at the moment. Does have the look to it where it does have certainly some shear being affected by it. And looking at the wind fields, I have noticed there has certainly been a bit of an uptick in some of the wind just south of Scottsburg on I-65. Here is the camera view. Let me show you that. This is what it looks like right now on I-65 in Scottsburg. And you can see the storm had just passed by there. But even if it is small, you can tell that it really just absolutely is pouring there into Scott County right now. So please be careful driving through this. This is looking toward the storms. We're heading north on 65 there. So even though we don't have any warnings out or anything, because it is such a small little cell, it is getting a little more organized. It's just moving into Scott County there, Kevin. And again, I'll be watching it and to see what happens. It may not develop into anything more than what it is now, but considering its structure right now, I do think it certainly bears watching.
All right. Again, no doubt that we've got our hands full today watching these individual storms. I've got my eyes on the one to the south, watching that while Brian was updating you on the one across Scott County. That storm obviously showing signs of increasing. Question is, will that continue? If it does, then obviously warnings would be issued. This is one that we have our eyes on now with a current warning. Will this warning extend? The Weather Service has been pushing these right up to the edge and then pushing out the warning. Question is, will that happen with this one? I'm banking on the answer being yes because of what we're looking at, and that is the rotation. We even see it'll be interesting to see what this spot looks like in the next scan, because that shows some signs of even tighter rotation if that's part of the whole thing. Tough to say on one scan, but something to watch. Let me just zoom back into that general area. We don't have a whole lot of storms around. This is the only warning that we have in our viewing area. I'm just going to take this one and zoom in a little closer. Notice those pixels showing up there. Each pixel matters, especially if it's repeated from scan to scan. So that's something that we'll be watching. Clearly, we have some broad rotation with that storm. Four Corners would be in a place that I would be watching. Vertrees, it's moving past you. It's going to approach Big Spring as well. That's the general area. So it's past 86. It's moving right along 490 or 920. This is the opportunity to at least see some strong wind with this storm. We go back inside. Let's just see if we can see any debris. Obviously, we haven't had anything confirmed at this point, so see nothing.
It's still in a very prime environment to rotate right there all the way through the southern part or western part of Bullitt and northern Hardin County.
Yes, and I think we're seeing it rotate. That's a second scan, it looks like. I'm curious to see what those pixels indicate. You know what I mean? Brian, jump in on that, because that's right along 920. It would typically, you'd think it would be over this way, but clearly it could be a blip in the radar.
It could be. You got some rain in the beam there, so it could be a little bit of a contamination. None of the scan will help us in confirming that, but it's, again, two different areas that are showing up. But that area near Rineyville has not been touched at all. So this is an environment that if this can kind of reorganize itself, because at this point, I think this was like maybe three different cells, and now we're looking at one.
Well, you can almost see where that hook is trying to develop on that storm even more pronounced.
And if it becomes just one by itself, no doubt at that point, I think we are going to see an organization into a supercell type of setup here. It's not quite there yet, but it is certainly trying. And this is what happens. We're watching this live.
And here comes the new warning, by the way.
Okay. All right. Real time. This is going all the way into Bullitt?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Up to the Jefferson County line. So Bullitt County, this is going to be the tornado warning. It is out, effective until about 6:30 Eastern time. This is going to be for Southeast Meade into southwest Bullitt County and northern Hardin County. That is, the tornado warning is out again until 6:30. Get in your safe spot. It's moving northeast at 35 miles per hour. It is still radar indicated.
Yeah, this is just off, it looks like it's just about 11 miles west of E-Town. So that's the storm right there. You can see it, E-Town. Take yourself 11 miles out. This is the hook I was talking about trying to develop. It is still radar indicated, as mentioned. Flaherty, Radcliffe, Vine Grove, all in the path of this. Notice the displacement from the first to now this one. So this is becoming the focal point of the storm. So that would be typical. That's where we started to see the greatest rotation. This is the inflow into the storm, providing energy. This is where the rotation would be. I'm going to zoom into that. While I'm doing that, Brian's going to focus on the same storm. He's going to give some specific timing of locations. But let me just zoom into the southern part of that storm. Let me put on our rotation, velocity, and there it is. It's that same area that we're watching right along 920. If we were to have eyes on this, if there's anything, there's a road right there. And now you can see that contamination getting a little bit more jagged. But that would be where we have the rotation, pushing up along 920 near Four Corners. That is the probable spot of that rotation. We're getting very close to the radar. That's not always good, because as you get close to the radar, it sort of distorts the imagery just a bit. So you like to be just a little bit away.
You can't see it. I'm using a terminal radar here. I don't know if you guys want to punch it. It takes a while to download. But I'm seeing it a little bit easier located there into just west of Rineyville. So again, a little contaminated. Once it gets a little further northeast, maybe I'll have a better handle on it because the terminal radar is located a little closer to Mount Washington. But Vertrees, Franklin Crossing Roads, Rineyville, right in that spot. So you can see the concentration of those lightning bolts too. Right in through here, this is where that circulation is ongoing. So where's it going to go from here? Well, let's time it out. If it continues on that northeast track, which it looks like it's been maintaining that for a while, let me adjust the speed, 35 miles per hour. So let's go. Let's hit into the times. And as we head into the next, actually, let me do a different one here. Hold on. The mouse got me. There we go. To the northeast, let's get you at about say 35 to 40 minutes or so from now. Just a few towns to list. Radcliffe, be about 1 minute after the hour, so about 15, 16 minutes or so from now. You head toward Booth at about 16 after, and Lebanon Junction coming up at about 19 after is when it should arrive. So that's based just on the worst part of the storm. The storm's bigger than that. So you're going to get rain and wind and a much wider scope in other towns, communities are listed. But as far as that circulation goes, if it were to hold, those are the times it stands right now.
All right, we've got 3 of our counties back under the tornado warning. This is going to be for Bullitt, Hardin, and Meade, all in Kentucky. This is the only warning that we currently have. This will go for another 43 minutes, so this takes us to the bottom of the hour, 6:30. So we're going to be on with you. You can see we got a little radar contamination here, but we are still seeing rotation not far from Four Corners. Here's Rineyville. If you're familiar with Hardin County, just go over 220. That takes you right out there, and that's where we're seeing the greatest rotation. This will be lifting off to the northeast at about 35 miles an hour. That puts Radcliffe right in the sort of center line of the polygon. So Radcliffe would be in line to see this storm. It's still, as Brian sort of plotted out, a little ways away. It's moving 25 miles an hour, so you're looking at roughly 20 minutes or so away. That puts it there close to 7 after the hour or so. So Radcliffe, you need to be paying close attention. Get ready to be in your tornado safe place. Pointing out that that is the warning that we have on the big board. It is the only one that is continuing. That's Bullitt, Hardin, and Meade until 6:30. That safe place is in the center of your home. That's if you have a basement, that's great. If you have a storm shelter, that's great. If you don't, just get to the main level and make sure you take shelter in an interior place. That means not an outside wall. You need to get yourself away from windows and put as many walls in between as you can. Oftentimes it's a bathroom, sometimes it's a closet, could be under the stairs, just so it's in the middle. These are the live view from Louisville. You can see our skies darkening just out to the west. We have thunderstorms as well nearby. We've seen the watch issued until midnight. This means severe weather is possible over the next several hours, but we're also seeing warnings, and those tornado warnings that are coming out, or severe thunderstorm warnings with tornadoes possible, means it's happening now. So when you hear that terminology, warning, take shelter. Now's the time. You've got some time, but go ahead and get in your tornado safe place. We've had some wind today in places, but nothing to cause a whole lot of power outages. Our temperature's up to 93 degrees. We've got a lot of 90s, a very juicy atmosphere on those southerly winds, cranking our dew points into the 70s. And now we contend with this tornado-warned storm that continues to show rotation across parts of our viewing area just south of Louisville. So back to the radar view. We're going to spend a lot of time on this over the course of the next little bit of time. And you can see that rotation showing up. We're going to zoom into it even more. This is going to be approaching the Four Corners area. It's going to work your way right close to Rhineyville. Should be just off to the perhaps west of Rhineyville, but this will make its way very close to Radcliffe. Flaherty is going to get obviously heavy rain out of this, probably already seeing that. Let's go back to the velocity or the reflectivity. Heavy rain, yes. So already seeing the heavy rain there. The inflow still very pronounced near Four Corners. This would be where we would have a tornado if we're going to have one touch down. As we take a closer view, this area would be the zone to watch, all right? And now, obviously, that's just adjusted. This seems to be closing in a little bit, but that's clear where we have the inflow. This would be the area to watch, just north of Four Corners, taking aim on Radcliffe. We'll see how that works out as it lifts off to the north. Wall cloud now coming in from Cecilia. This is Cecilia, so they can see this storm. Our E-Town camera can probably see this storm.
That's the camera up there if you have a...
So it's a little muddy looking. So we have the SkyTrack cameras. I'll see if the folks in the control room can punch that up. And then maybe we zoom it around a little bit just to show the difference. But yeah, it's tough to tell.
That's aimed right to the storm, looking northwest.
You can kind of see if you look near the tallest radio tower, you can see that cloud sort of hanging out just a bit. So that's probably the wall cloud they're referencing. Tough to really see it on that camera view there, but we're watching it. So our camera's located on top of the hospital in E-Town, so we're looking pretty much just out to the west and slightly to the north. Well, really, we were looking down Dixie, so we're probably seeing this part of the storm as it's moving through. There's a building just behind it, so we should be able to see a pretty straight shot right over Rhineyville. We'll keep an eye on that as that storm makes its way. So camera view right along Dixie, looking back to the storm. Inflow still shows up. Let's go back to the velocity. Brian, I see you already have it up, so let's just get a quick update with, again, more times, more locations. I really think this dude's tightening up even more in the last scan that we saw just a few minutes ago. So I suspect, and you're looking at a better view because of the terminal velocity just a little bit further away.
Yeah, look, had to use different radar just because of the way the radars work in beams, so it's a little easier to see. But yeah, right there into around Four Corners. In fact, when I actually hold on one second, they did an update. Just want to make sure nothing's changed. Okay, good. Northeast to 40. Let me get rid of the radar so you can see the shear markers and see it that it certainly did try to get even more organized right there at Four Corners. So if the rotation, which you can see how it is kind of blotchy on how it evolves and works its way past Four Corners, now working its way, here's Rhineyville right here. So it's just west of Rhineyville. So this is a bit delayed. So I would think the circulation's right to the point of being northwest of Rhineyville. That looks like it's on 4 or actually 600. I believe it's 600. The font's real small. I apologize, but I can actually see it here. 1600. Okay, so right there at 1600, just west of Longview, there is Dixie Highway 31W. So this circulation, if it holds, and again, it's so far as aloft, it will move right over 31W in the Longview area between there and Rhineyview here in the next few moments. Again, this is just going by some of the indicators we get on rotation that we can see on a history of a storm. And sure enough, the radar seems to be lining up with that idea. So big heads up. That's why the warning is so large in the polygon and how it was drawn, is to kind of give you guys as much of a heads up as we can on where the path will be. And if this holds course, I mean, this is going to head right in toward eventually Shepherdsville. May not be in the same form, but the core of the storm anyway is aiming in that direction. And I'm not sure yet if it's another circulation's trying to form or not, because again, I'm looking at the terminal. It could be just a downburst wind on the other side of the storm, but I'll be watching that too, Kevin, as it comes on by. But it's going to be really tough, it looks like, for Louisville to miss out on at least some strong thunderstorms. We don't know if they'll be severe, but strong thunderstorms are looking a little more likely to move into the metro from the southwest. So an even bigger heads up for those in Jefferson County to be ready. Make sure you got your kids accounted for. If they're out hanging out in the pool today or whatever, make sure to bring them in. Pay attention to the TV, what we're saying, and as soon as we give you the call to action, go ahead and get into your safe spot.
All right, storm spotters reporting the wall cloud near North Hardin High School. Wall cloud can be ominous looking. It's another stage in the development of possible tornadoes. We're watching that storm with our SkyTrack camera. I want to show that from the view right out of E-Town. So as we look back toward Rineyville, this will be the view that you see from our SkyTrack camera. Take it full and you'll be able to see that wall cloud pronounced showing up. So that is the storm. That is what we're watching. You can see the different layers of that. That's the wall cloud that's passing by. This is a live view from atop the hospital as the storm has moved just out from behind the building. This is a great view of what folks in Hardin County are seeing move in their direction, and that is the wall cloud. Now, where would the tornado come from? It would be coming out of the sort of forward side of that. Obviously, there's heavy rain, which darkens the cloud. And then you can see the smooth nature or the roundedness of that storm. That's the indicator of the rotation from that. Ryan Hoke is working our cameras, and feel free to chime in. You can see the heavy rain shaft putting down some very heavy rain, as we've mentioned, and the possibility of even some small hail at this point. So this is the strongest storm on radar. Not only are we watching it on radar, but we have the view now live from our SkyTrack camera down in Hardin County.
Yeah, you can see the scud on that there. It's kind of like this wispiness that's kind of at the center of your screen there. Right now, I don't see any evidence that that is rotating. I've got kind of a closer up display here that I can look at of this. But yeah, we're going to have a really good view on this. If it decides to do anything tornadic, you'll see it here first, Kev.
Yeah, no question. And Brian, I see that on the radar view, not only the velocity showing that rotation, but we also have some very heavy rain falling and the potential for even some hail. I'll put the radar on here a second. You're going to notice some of the colors showing up in terms of the deeper reds, and we even had a few purples in there.
Exactly, and I'll switch over to a different radar views on it, but when we focus in just on the ones located right there into the terminal, that's where you get into some of those pinks that are beginning to show up there. But there are additional storms, too, showing up to the south of Radcliffe that we're watching. And look at that wall of heavy rain and storms quickly coming in to Litchfield and the southern part there of Grayson County. And we're still watching these cells that are located up there across Indiana as well, Kevin, as they continue to track off to the north and east. No warnings on anything in Indiana, just FYI. Looking at just what is rotating right now in the area, and you can certainly see the focal point has been on a couple small areas that moved in Indiana, and then obviously Grayson County had 1, 2, and 3, and it looks like the third one has been the charm here on this one, as it's now overtaking areas very close to Rineyville and just northwest of E-Town, Kevin.
All right, we'll watch that. We'll keep us on the 4 box here. I want to be able to keep that SkyTrack camera up. You can keep an eye on Brian, and then we'll just go back and forth. So let's go back to our home view. I'll point out what's happening here. We've got the one supercell thunderstorm that has the tornado warning with it. No other storms in our viewing area are warned at this point. This is the one we're watching out of Hardin County. It's the one you can see behind me. That is the storm. That's the live view. The Storm Prediction Center is also chiming in on the potential for some heavy rainfall with some of these storms. So that's going to be an issue as we roll through the rest of this evening. Some areas getting a tremendous amount of water out of this tropical system that's passing by. Zooming in again to this storm to our south. This is now across southern parts of Meade County, western parts of Hardin County, very close to the Radcliffe area. We go back to the velocity, and we've had no reports. This is important to note. And while the greatest rotation is showing up very much near Radcliffe, we've had along this whole day no reports of actual tornadoes on the ground. So that's something that's important to note. That is something that we've been watching closely throughout the day. Your reports. Nothing better than real-time information coming in as we center up this warning. This warning is in place for another 32 minutes. It will take us past the top of the hour. Hello, Myra. Myra's just walking past. And you'll notice that that is where we have the strongest rotation, but nothing actually touching down. So keeping an eye both to the radar, looking for tightening circulations, and also keeping an eye on our SkyTrack cameras, looking for those appendages that are actually rotating. And at this point, we've not had either of those. I'm watching the storm to the south. Brian has his view up to the north in parts of Scott County, Indiana. That storm has also been struggling. It's sort of outpaced the energy. But Brian, if you want to give an update on that, we'll roll around on this one.
Yeah, I'm sure it's got some very ominous looking clouds there. We don't have a direct camera on that particular one, but it's got that little bit of a half horseshoe shape, if you will, that is moving up 65 and 31. In fact, the circulation with it is aloft and it's relatively weak, but it is tracking right along I-65 and 31. So it's right over Austin, Indiana, heading toward Kaminsky as it moves out of the county line here very, very soon. Again, it's got the structure for it, but it doesn't have all the ingredients with it, so that's why it remains disorganized. But I can guarantee you, if it were to try to do anything, the emergency managers and law enforcement are going to know right away, because this is one that does not have any contamination of heavy rain around it. So if it tries to drop any kind of funnel, we're going to know fast. And we've had 0 reports of that. So right now it's just a thunderstorm that just looks weird right now on the radar. And it continues to move in the northern side there of Scott County and eventually in southern Jennings County as well. That's the only thing right now in our area for Indiana that I think is of concern, and that's a relatively minor concern. Overall, it's really going to be how these evolve. And Kevin, with that merging going on, all these cells that bump together overall, you would think by looking at the loop on this that eventually this is going to be continuing to try to refocus or recycle more on the eastern side of it. So if that's the case, that may mean like PRP, Valley Station, or even the western side of 65 in general in the city may end up with just rain. But if you're in eastern Bullitt County into eastern Jefferson County, that may still be a storm to watch carefully. What an ominous image that is.
Yeah, that feature has been there for quite some time here. So it is a persistent feature. I think it may very well be a wall cloud at this point.
Yeah, we're watching the, there it is, the view out of Elizabethtown. Again, we're looking for some rounded edges on that, but that's part of that larger base, part of that wall cloud that's moving past Radcliffe at this point. So we've got our eyes on it. You can see the inflow into the storm. That whole storm is rotating. And of course, you know, the whole atmosphere, if you watch that closely enough, you'll see the rotation in that. You know, you get the updrafts into the storm. That's what makes them grow in height, sometimes as tall as, you know, 30, 40, 50,000 feet. It's why airplanes don't fly through. There's a tremendous amount of wind energy in those updrafts. A lot of times there's hail in those. We've got a new severe thunderstorm warning coming out for Breckenridge and Grayson counties. I'm going to take you to that while we keep up the screen on what you're watching. Notice the change in the direction of the polygons. So instead of going back to the north and east, this storm is now going pretty much to the north and slightly to the west. 60-mile-per-hour winds. This does not have great rotation with it, but it still has plenty of wind, upwards of 60-mile-per-hour winds with this. This is a new severe thunderstorm warning until 6:30 or 5:30 their local time for Breckenridge and Grayson counties. So this will be the third time you've been sort of ran over today by storms. This has been the hotbed of storm development and will gradually ease, but it's going to still take a little bit of time. The other storm that's now working its way to the north, some of this may be cutting off some of that energy. Southerly winds into the storm near Radcliffe, being sort of eclipsed by what we have ongoing in parts of southern Grayson County, along and south of the parkways. That's very heavy rain and the potential for wind. While I have that up, I'll put on the velocity just to see if there are any heavy wind pockets. And we see, yeah, well, you'd expect it to be in the polygon, so it's pretty much just south of Litchfield. So be prepared, Litchfield, for some gusty winds, upwards of 40, 50-mile-per-hour possible. Could go as high as 60. The reason the warning is issued, so we'll watch that closely. Back to the velocity with the greatest rotation over Radcliffe. This is going to approach and cross 31W, so it's going to be moving across Dixie Highway. And as that makes its way farther to the north, eventually it takes it into Bullitt County, and we have the tornado warning for those locations. I'm going to show you just how close we're getting to Louisville, because southern Jefferson County should be on guard with this storm. Go back to our radar view, and you'll see that is right over Radcliffe, lifting at about 35 miles an hour. That's going to take it right into southern Jefferson County, probably within the next, I'd say, 45 minutes. So may clip southwest Jefferson County within the next 30. I'm thinking more over toward Fairdale, probably about 6:45 or so. So we've got a little bit of time. We'll see if the rotation maintains itself. But again, that's the tornado warning and severe thunderstorm warning that we have to deal with. Other tornado warnings have been taking place southwest Indiana. We'll have more of those move through later in the evening hours. This is just a minute-by-minute, sort of hour-by-hour scan of the radar as long as we have the tornado potential on the map. And we have it not only because the warning is there, but really it's the analysis that's the most important part. And when we look at that, we still have that rotation showing up. You can clearly see it from our SkyTrack camera. I mean, you can see what those skies look like. It's a very turbulent sky. Obviously, we have the wall cloud. We can see the different components of that storm, from the updraft to the rear flank downdraft. So we're watching that storm closely. Produce a lot of heavy rain, too. It is moving at about 30 to 35 miles an hour, but it is also a lot of scud with that. And the scud are those low-hanging, sort of torn-looking clouds that oftentimes get sort of mixed up with funnel clouds. What we would be looking for would be a much smoother cloud, one that would be tighter and rotating, that could come down to the ground. That would be the funnel cloud should that develop. So the storm tracker has been out and about as well. We showed you David Mattingly on board there. He was showing us the damage from Goshen earlier over in Oldham County. So we have had some damage from earlier this morning. Those were storms that moved through here. You think back just a week ago, we had July 4th and an EF1 touchdown western Jefferson County. Also other storm damage back out across Harrison County. We're going to wind up today tracking additional storms that have the ability to produce tornadoes, even though we've technically had no tornado touchdown at this point. Let's go over to Brian Good. He's got his eyes on some of those shear markers. They are always an indicator of where we are seeing the greatest amount of rotation. When it upticks and when it comes back down, super important.
Absolutely. And they just kind of redrew the warning itself for Bullitt County and into Hardin County. Make sure there's nothing unusual in this. They're still going 35 miles per hour to the north and east. Nothing too shocking on that. Again, you're looking at the shear markers, which is going to be in that blue or purplish color. That tells us the strongest point of where the storm is actually rotating. And you notice when it moved out of Grayson County, there has been an obvious little shift, a little more to the northeast on its track, even though the tornado warning is right in there, northeast areas of Hardin County and the far western side there of Bullitt County. We'll see if it will continue that or not, because the shear markers have really dropped off the past couple scans. I'm not getting an update on the most recent one, so I'm hoping that's a good sign that maybe just maybe this is losing some of that kick, but it continues to lift to the north and east, and I don't think they've decided yet if they're going to do any kind of extension on it. I think they really want to see what happens. A lot of people live there. This is a big populated spot there for Radcliffe, right? It is up against the radar beam, so it does run into some challenges on data coming through the area, but it is certainly, to say the least, it is a photogenic storm, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of photos, Ryan, on that one, right?
Yeah, here's the deal, guys. I've been watching our SkyTrack camera down there looking at this very storm. We have lost that wall cloud. It is more of a diffuse sort of flat look to this storm now, so that kind of owes to what you were seeing on radar there, Brian. This thing is sort of falling apart at this point, probably getting cut off by the rear flank downdraft, some of the downdraft winds getting ingested in here, and well, you're just not going to get a tornado out of that kind of scenario should that be the case here. But we'll continue to monitor the SkyTrack camera and see what develops over the next few minutes there, Kev.
All right, good to have so many sets of data. The radar is one thing, the reflectivity, obviously we have the velocity, the correlation coefficient. Our SkyTrack cameras prove valuable during severe weather, and then of course all of the spotters that we have working with us, and just all of our viewers. I mean, nowadays everybody's a spotter with their cell phones. So many of you have the Wave Weather app. We work super hard to make sure that's updated every day with the most accurate forecast. And if you were watching the last couple of days, we declared today an alert day to say, hey, you're going to have to pay a little closer attention as the remnants of Beryl move in our direction. All right, I'm going to just zoom back into the core of this storm. I mean, the radar is right on top. It's right on top of the radar. So the data is going to be a little iffy. I had the menu up. Let's go back into the velocity. And again, we are still seeing that rotation over Gaffey Heights and just north of Radcliffe. We saw right up 31W, so that's Dixie Highway. That is the area that we're watching from our SkyTrack camera. So we see this part of the storm. It is starting to get a little more elongated and stretched out. Very heavy rain through that zone, though. And some areas have had heavy rain throughout the day today. Let me just show you, first of all, the radar so you can see where it is currently raining. And you're going to see that anywhere from West Point down to Radcliffe, points further back toward Pitts Point. That is one thunderstorm that we've been tracking. And when we look at some of the reports that we've had so far today, we can take a look at the rain gauges from our Mesonet sites across the area and notice some areas back near Hardensburg, over an inch of rain. Brandenburg, over a half an inch of rain. Some of this to our north, likewise, seeing some of that impressive rain totals, but the heaviest have been with those stronger thunderstorms that have moved through the area. Here in Louisville, while we had some rain, some areas to our south have not. I want to also talk about some of the wind reports when we look at that. Let's see if we have any. First of all, I'll use the local storm reports. Nothing in our area. 2 tornado reports and damage, southwest Indiana, west Kentucky. Let's see for us. And then, of course, the trees over in Goshen. We talked about that one. Let's also look at the MPING reports. We'll just go wind on that. We've had no hail today. MPING reports nothing really coming in. So we haven't had a whole lot of reports. That's good news. That doesn't mean people aren't reporting it. It means that we're not seeing any damage. Let's go back to our radar view, and then we'll zoom back into the storm off to the south. Talking that is the 2 warnings that we have listed at 20 minutes on both. Severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Breckenridge and Grayson. And then, of course, the tornado warning now for Bullitt and northern Hardin County. So that's the tornado warned storm that we have. Still showing some of that rotation. We go back in as we zoom into that storm. Watching the storm down along the parkways. That's the storm bringing heavy rain and wind into Litchfield. But this is the storm that has really captivated our attention with the strongest of rotation, splitting at one point from one tornado one storm to the next. And now this is it, lifting through Radcliffe. And of course, it's approaching southern Jefferson County. So the big question is, what will we see? Will this trigger the tornado warning as this moves toward Okolona, or will it just maintain sort of the thunderstorm nature that it has? And back to the velocity we go. And we still see that rotation. So I have a feeling as long as we're still seeing a couplet on the radar, the Weather Service is going to continue that tornado warning. We still have probably another 20 minutes still in this polygon to go. Maybe not quite that long. Maybe another 15, 20 minutes in that polygon before we then now press it into Jefferson County. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's in a tough spot right now. As you guys know that live in that area, it's just, big drop-offs, Muldraugh Hill's not too far away. So you end up with a very hilly terrain in there. So we don't usually get a lot of reports in this particular spot until they are delayed or emergency managers are out in the field and actually see it. But the rotation is indeed still there. It is broad, but what we've seen is a cycling aspect of it. And again, Louisville's been overcast in the past hour, but we still have a lot of humidity, and we've been hovering still near 90 in the past hour alone. So we'll see what happens. But even just take that aside, let's just say that this is going to be just nothing severe coming through the area, and just say just the general thunderstorm. But that indeed will be moving in with a round of heavier rain, showers, and storms will be overtaking Jefferson County here as we head into the next, I would say, hour. Some heavier rain and showers and storms rolling through. So far, no reports are really on the hail side. Normally, we would get a lot of those reports on hail, but I've not noticed that at all so far out of this system. So it's been mainly just an idea of organized different pockets of wind. Some cases, rotation develops. Sometimes it does not. It goes back into the cloud. But that is certainly the main focal point. A broader view on other storms across the region. Still dealing with what looks to be a line that is still wanting to connect from Jasper all the way to Litchfield. We'll see if that can happen or not. This is the main line. This is the end game right here. This show will be over with as soon as that passes your neighborhood, and that's a few hours away. But as you can tell by this, and I just want to show this real fast, the Futurecast, again, updates every hour. Watch what happens as it evolves through the next few hours. It takes the cells that are in that line between Jasper and into Litchfield, brings them across through the 7 o'clock hour, but then notice that that main line, the last gas, if you will, begins to power back up and focuses much more on Indiana than it does into Kentucky, guys.
All right, and the data has been mentioning and sort of alluding to that for quite some time, that southern Indiana would be painted in that target, so later in the evening. That's when we expected the worst of this to really occur, was through the evening hours, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. The question is, how will this all unfold? The weather's always changing. That's why sometimes, we get thrown curveballs and surprises. Today has been no surprise. We've seen individual cells that are rotating. We see that by radar. We also have had many calls to the emergency managers around the area. And while Litchfield, because of the fire department there, has reported a few reports of funnel clouds within the last 10 minutes, we've had no confirmed reports of any damage, right, Ryan?
Yeah, at this point, I just got off the phone with the emergency management office there in Hardin County. They say no reports of damage. And of course, we've been able to corroborate that because of our own SkyTrack camera, able to see kind of the business end of that thunderstorm as it moved through the Radcliffe area from E-Town there. Fantastic vantage point there. So our SkyTrack camera, you see it up live there, kind of has this flat base that you see. Before it had kind of a nub, if you will, kind of looked like a Hershey's Kiss almost, kind of inverted there, and that was the wall cloud that we saw, and that wall cloud is gone, and the radar is indicating that this is not as much of a tornado threat as it once was, but we're going to continue to watch from our SkyTrack camera, the radar, and have calls out to emergency managers here throughout the rest of the evening there, Kevin.
All right, appreciate that, Ryan. Obviously, we've been busy throughout the afternoon here. We started around 3 o'clock with a tornado warning southern Adair County. We've had several since then. We now have one that's approaching the metro area, moving into western parts of Bullitt County. That's northwest Bullitt County from West Point over to Muldrow. As you work your way right toward Valley Station, Fairdale, Okolona, that is the track of this storm. Now, will the warning hold? Will there be a tornado warning for southern Jefferson County, southwest Jefferson County? Don't know that answer. We still have the rotation showing up, and I would suspect that as long as we see the couplet showing up, that the potential is there in the environment that we have. And as we go later into the evening hours, wind field's increasing just a bit, the area of low pressure getting even closer to us. I suspect we're going to maintain with a couplet the tornado warnings as they move off to the north and east. Back to the radar view, we have heavy rain falling in an area that's already picked up some rain today. This will continue to lift in as well, producing a tremendous amount of rain in some places. Now, we have additional warnings coming out, and this not necessarily in our area, but I just want to zoom out. You can see back out along the Indiana-Illinois border. Notice the white outline on that. Considerable damage. That's a confirmed and dangerous tornado that's near Owensville. All right. So again, that's that secondary line that Brian was mentioning. That's the end of the show. All right, that Brian pointed out. That moves closer to us around that 10 o'clock time frame. So that's what we'll be watching as that moves closer. So that may be the focal point as we twist this around. That may be why southern Indiana stands the best chance at seeing the greatest rotation. Because you've got to keep in mind, I'm going to pan this over and sort of explain. I didn't zoom it out real far, but I think you'll get the idea. If we have an area of low pressure, that's the remnants of the hurricane Beryl. Lots of low pressure, lots of wind, lots of twist. Along that, we get these bands of rain, right? That's sort of what we're seeing here. These are downpours that are coming into that storm, as you would expect to see in that hurricane type situation. Well, with that, as the storm forward motion drags it in this direction, that means these bands have to come up like this. And with that, we're adding a little bit more twist. And that's why this part of Indiana and Kentucky will stand the chance to see some rotation continuing into the evening hours, with that getting a little closer to us. Now, the low is not moving right across us. It goes to our north, but that gives you an idea of what to expect in terms of where the twist in the atmosphere is, especially as we start to ramp up the low-level winds. Now, the tornado warning continues across parts of northern Hardin, western parts of Bullitt County. This tornado warning will go until 6:30, so we've still got another 12 minutes on that warning. Question is, does it get extended? So let's just take a closer view, and then back to the velocity. Should show up right at the bottom of the screen here. And let me lift that up just a little bit. So as we continue to move this out of the polygon and up, we've lost a little bit of the rotation, but still just off to the west of Pitts Point. It's south of West Point at this point in the game. Moving up toward Barrelton. It's as you cross into Bullitt County. This is all going to stay just west of Shepherdsville. And then we get into southern Jefferson County. So southern Jefferson County, be ready. I mean, you're going to see thunderstorms at the least, probably a burst of wind. We're gusting at the airport at 21 right now. But I would say the Jefferson Memorial Forest, perhaps Valley Station over to Fairdown, eventually Okolona, should be paying close attention to this storm as it moves to our south, moving off to the northeast at about 35 miles an hour. Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that rain is a pretty good bet getting out of this system as it moves into the area. But as far as anything damaging, that remains to be seen. Notice that the main point of rotation is about here. It's broad, but it's still located in this particular spot. But notice the shear markers now are not exactly lining up with it as much as they were earlier. I think it's just becoming so broad, it's just not indicating anything that's significant right now. So we'll see what happens in the next few moments. No doubt it's going to be a scary looking type of setup as it moves in from the south. You can see the little burst of wind. This is a cooling wind that is now moving through the forest, and eventually we'll move into Hillview and the Brooks exit. So you should see your temperature drop a good 10 degrees as it moves on by here very soon as it moves off to the north. But at the moment, this is not a concerning signal right now. We'll see if it comes back. I hope it doesn't, but I like the trend. I like where we're going with this, where it's just tapering down slowly but surely, just a rain event, and that looks to be the case right now as it moves off to the north and east. There are other storms out there Kevin was talking about, but this is a very small section of the severe threat zone is really going to be right in our area. I mean, southern Indiana, especially southern and southwest Indiana, far northern Kentucky, and around Evansville. That's a spot for the next 4 or 5 hours, and then it is over with for the night.
Yeah, and thankfully so, right? We've had enough severe weather this year. For anybody that was like hoping for a few thunderstorms, whoa, it's been a rough one. Again, we watch the radar closely, and we'll be doing this all night, currently with the tornado warning for northern parts of Hardin County, western parts of Bullitt County. That's the severe thunderstorm, or that's the tornado warning that we have lifting off to the north and east. About another 10 minutes left on that. Now, if the tornado warning expires without any additional severe thunderstorm or tornado warning, we're going to let you go back to programming. But if there's a severe thunderstorm warning that comes out with this, we're likely going to just, as long as it has that sign of rotation, we're likely going to keep an eye on that. Now, the National Weather Service is saying that southern Jefferson County, northeastern Bullitt, and north central Hardin counties will experience a heavy thunderstorm. So they're issuing a statement on that that's just saying it's a heavy thunderstorm. We'll wait to see if they carry the tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning. If they do not, and that warning expires and does not get extended either by tornado or severe, then we're going to get you to NBC Nightly News. And then obviously we're here watching this. And then we'll keep an eye on the other warnings. And should additional threats pop up where we could have rotation or actual tornado touchdowns or even powerful winds that could cause damage, then we'll jump right back on. It's easy for us to do. So the tornado warning for Bullitt County is being expired early, so they're letting that one go. That includes the parts of Hardin and Meade County as well. Let's go over to Ryan Hoke.
Okay, tree on a power line. This is Berrytown Road near Rineyville. We're just getting this report in from Ashley on social media there. That is located just to the south and east of Radcliffe there, so we'll follow up with that report. But right now, that is the only report of damage that we have from this particular thunderstorm as it continues to weaken and move into western Bullitt. Kev.
All right, Brian, while I track the storm here, I want to just have you in the conversation. So let's talk about what the Weather Service is looking at. I'm going to zoom into it so folks at home can see. Clearly, we have the severe thunderstorm warning across Grayson County. This is now lifting up into Breckenridge County. That has shown no signs of damage, correct?
That is correct. That one has just been so far just a wall of rain from what you can gather that's come through. Now, it is coming in at a much different angle than the first one was, so there could be some tree damage just because of the shift in the wind and its approach. It wouldn't surprise me. So that is possible, but I think right now that's mainly just been a wall of
new severe
wind.
warning for Jennings, by the way. Tornado possible on that.
Yeah, that's the same, by the way, the little baby system we've been tracking for a while that's been moving up 65. That continues to move up, and now it's developed quite the appendage over Kaminsky itself, and the shear marker has really gone up as well. I mean, if you guys can see that on here, but let me show you the hook right over into here. There's that hook echo right. There's Kaminsky. There's the warning itself. There's North Vernon, US 50, and that hook right there at Kaminsky is showing up. And when I click that off, you can see the actual shear marker has really gone up too, right at that point just south of Kaminsky. So this is really powered back up. So it held on to its structure even when it formed actually west of Valley Station is where this originated from when I first started tracking it. So it took a while, but it's just not getting to the point where it needs to be watched now.
All right. Well, the good news is the storm moving out of Bullitt and Hardin County. That one's wiped out, Brian. Keep us on the double box. Let us just have this conversation because we're going to get to nightly news, it looks like. This storm showing concern because, as you pointed out, severe for now, but the shear marker increasing right over Comiskey. You can start to see a little bit of rotation there. And when you look back on the velocity that we're looking at, we're starting to see just a little rotation. On the reflectivity that you have, you can see that inflow in the hook. So that one will deserve watching a little closer up in parts of Jennings County. So we'll watch that. We left that conversation talking about the one down in moving into Breckinridge County. No problems with that. The other one on the map, Brian, is the one moving into southern Jefferson County. You're going to see the tornado warning on that, but that has expired. And the National Weather Service didn't go with either tornado warning or tornado warning. So they're saying they're just going with a special weather statement on that.
Yeah, no warning at all on it. Yeah, exactly. And that's mainly just because everyone's been seeing how ominous the clouds have been. We saw the wall cloud. They're seeing the rotation, but the rotation visually has not fully been matching up with what a reality would have been for a classified as a tornado warning type scenario. It's just some scary moments there where it was certainly rotating around. But you got to keep in mind, this thing was made up of 2 to 3 additional cells throughout the past hour or so of its life. So there's going to be a lot of different signatures we're going to get on the radar. We were looking for one definitive one that really gets our attention to cause concern. Never really got to that point. It tried to the last 30 minutes, but it's really struggled a bit as it's moving out to Jefferson. That's good, but good for some gardens there for those of you heading into downtown Louisville or even Valley Station, Iroquois Park. You get some rain soon. But right now, that one in Indiana continues to, at least the velocity starting to go up a little bit more on it. Not quite fully tight, but it's getting tighter.
I was just getting ready to zoom into that storm over Du Bois County. They've just issued the warning for that. Tornado possible with that one, too. So we're getting into that southern Indiana sort of zone where we have the greatest potential for twist and rotation, which is why you're seeing all of these come out with tornado possible tags. 60-mile-per-hour winds on this one, just to look at the velocity so you can see if there is a couplet on that. We look at the velocity. You can see there are really 2 types on there, one near Duff and then another one just north of White Sulphur Springs. So we have a couple of areas of rotation showing up on that storm in Du Bois County.
One
so
looks
now
like it's just west of Ireland. That's the tightest one I see there.
Yes, and
on 56.
And let me just zoom back as we go back into this again. If we look at the severe thunderstorm warning, I think it's important. There's Ireland. This was the one Brian's watching. Again, to our south, we've got more. So there's 2 couplets in this storm. And then I'll pan this up just a bit so everybody at home can see what we're watching. And I'll just center that there. This severe thunderstorm warning for Jennings County and Du Bois County, both that we have out, are the 2 severe thunderstorm warnings in our viewing area. That's it. The tornado warning that was once in place to our south has expired. So we no longer have any tornado warnings at this point, but we do have rotation showing up in right along 56, as you can see, just west of Ireland, as Brian mentioned, across southern Indiana. So that's one storm. And then, Brian, you're watching the one over near North Vernon across parts of Jennings County.
Exactly, and that one's moving at about 20 miles per hour. I'm going to give us some communities right now based on the center of that location. Moving a little slower than the others are, but it's heading a little more due north compared to what we had before the previous storm. So give me just a moment. I'll be able to plot that. Again, moving in at about 20. Most have been about 20 to 35 most of the day today. So if this were to hold on its current course, North Vernon is likely going to be in the path, but I'll get you all the way to at least the border on this. So we'll put Grayford coming in at about 43 minutes after the hour. North Vernon itself, 6:52 is what I got right now for North Vernon for its arrival. Butlerville, 1 minute after 7. Brewersville, 8 minutes after 7 o'clock. So if it holds on its course, that's a good 20 minutes or 25 minutes heads up for North Vernon. If this were to hold on what it's doing now, with it being a rotating storm, but not a tornado-warned storm for right now, but we're watching it.
Yeah, and again, watching a number of things. Obviously, the one over in Jennings County, this is Du Bois County. We have the rotation there, some rotation to the south. That one appears to be a little bit stronger. We go back to our home view on this, and as we take a view, we're starting to see some rain bump into southern Jefferson County, but it is not severe. A number of warnings lined up along the Illinois-Indiana border. That's that final gasp or the last sort of band that will move through here later tonight. Keep in mind, it has to pivot around, so it's going to go something like that as it moves through tonight, and then as the area of low pressure moves to our north, it'll drag that through here. The tornado warning that you see on the map expired, and it'll fall off here in the next minute. So it was set to expire at 6:30. They expired or canceled it early, and that one will fall off.
And the shear markers are going up for just west of Seymour, by the way. There's no warning out for that, but they are starting to go up for that particular cell. So maybe try to get it. There may be certainly obviously a boundary there near 150 or Highway 50 that those particular cells are running into and may start rotating along 50 there.
So really the two warnings that we have: severe thunderstorm with tornado possible, parts of Du Bois County, parts of Jennings County at this point. Shear markers going up over near Seymour. That's where that's the one Brian mentioned. We'll just zoom into that. New tornado warning coming out. So here we are with a new tornado warning that's just been issued, and let's just take a look. This is going to be for that Du Bois storm, and again, just west of Ireland. As mentioned, that warning will now go until 7 o'clock. So this is sort of the trend that we're going to see through the evening hours. Severe thunderstorm warnings, tornadoes possible, or the tornado warning. We clearly saw the rotation by radar, so it's indicated by radar. We've had no confirmed reports. Frankly, we had no confirmed reports of tornadoes at all. We've seen no major damage today. We've had some minor wind damage, but not necessarily caused by any of the tornado warnings. This is the one we're on. All right, so we continue with our nonstop. I thought maybe we get you back to nightly news, but that's not going to happen. So we're with you for the long haul here. We've been on since 3 o'clock this afternoon with multiple tornado warnings, no touchdowns that we know of, and we continue to track these now across southern Indiana, moving into a place that, by the way, would have been the sort of spotlighted location for the most intense storms today. All right, let's get back to our coverage here. I thought we were going to get back, which is why I was holding on the 2 box, Brian. We're going to have a conversation, but now we'll just kind of get back into our normal routine here. We've got that tornado warning. Let me just zoom out everything. I'm going to go back to our home view, pointing out that inside the original severe thunderstorm warning, now we have the tornado warning. The other warning that we have is across Jennings County. That's just south of North Vernon and just slightly to the east. In Louisville, we're starting to see some rain push in to the viewing area. Our storm tracker's along the Gene Snyder, so we'll be able to show you what that looks like too, with that rain moving closer to us here in southern Jefferson County, lifting up closer to the airport. So rain for us, but the good news is that storm really fizzled out as it moved closer to us, and we have nothing to worry about in terms of severe weather at this point with that. We still have some heavy rain and lightning across southern half of Breckinridge County, but that likewise not severe. Let's go back into the storm over in Du Bois County. This is the tornado warned storm near a very long line of tornado warnings, by the way, that have produced tornado touchdowns. So this one, again until 7 o'clock, Du Bois County. You can see the structure of that based on radar, but you can also see that rotation showing up based on velocity. And that's the area that we're going to lift off to the north and east. That storm is also moving roughly at about 25 to 35 miles per hour. That's the only tornado warning that we have out of 2 additional severe thunderstorm warnings that have tornadoes possible. And you're going to see that today because of the atmosphere that we have to deal with. So back to our view. I'm going to just move this around, and then we'll put some cities on that and track it off to the north and east. So let's just do that. I'm going to put the radar on, and then we'll go into our let's see if we can't track that with this. Let's just track this bottom part. Let me try that again. I'm just going to center it up. And then we'll track that off to the north, roughly at about 30 miles an hour. So that's going to take it near Portersville and Reeve, 645 Portersville, Reeve at about 654. So those are some of the locations on the path of the core of that storm. Obviously, you have the heavy rain and some wind out ahead of that. Brian, what do you have?
So far, just keep an eye on the Indiana cells that are still moving north. This is north of Louisville. We're talking about Jennings, Jackson, Lawrence, that row of counties there to the north. Couple of cells. They have had some rotation with them. These are not tornadic in any way right now. There's no tornado warning that is out. They're just severe thunderstorm warnings that are out just for the Jennings portion of it. But they're both almost what we've had to face in Grayson County, where they're basically like twins that are trying to compete for that environment. But they are moving into an environment they can support rotation, so that's the reason why there is a tornado possible tag on that. But again, no tornado warning officially out for Jennings or Jackson counties. Just be aware of that. But certainly some gusty thunderstorms will not last very long. These are relatively small, so they're going to move in, move on out. Let us know if you experience any type of high wind or hail or anything unusual, and we'll pass it along to the Weather Service. Otherwise, into Louisville, we're just gearing up for what looks to be just the burst of rain and some wind. I mean, I would say the wind will probably get about 35 miles per hour would be an early thought on that that we may run into, especially since we're been in the 90s today. So we may get a bit of an uptick on that rainfall as it moves in the southern part of Jefferson County. But there's a lot of, you see all that green that is there on Jefferson County. That's a lot of the blow off from earlier. That really does taper down in a big way, any threat of anything big happening in advance of that directly.
It may have really saved us in a way from seeing that rotation move in. You know, we pointed that out hours in advance from those storms down in Grayson County, saying, oh, those winds were really blowing off the cloud tops our way. And sure enough, the storms did weaken as they followed that same path. Now, what's not weakened is we are seeing some rotation with this storm, not just on radar. We now have from the emergency management in Du Bois County, spotters reporting some rotation. That was not far from 200 north, 600 west in Du Bois County. So those are the roads that they have. You can see the sort of the hook on that, the inflow into that storm. And let's just take a closer view of the rotation. The velocity gives us a great idea of that, and we still see some of that showing up. It's not as bright or as tight, but it's there, and that is the rotation as we track it to the north. Remember, we said it would be lifting to the north at about 30-35 miles an hour, and that's continuing in that direction. So that tornado warning, trimming up the bottom side of that, will continue because of that rotation that was noted over Du Bois County. This is just off to the north and west of Jasper. This warning will continue simply because of the rotation that's showing up on radar. Radar indicated only. We've had no reports of tornado touchdowns, and luckily we haven't seen a whole lot in the way of damage. I'm going to get a check of Ryan Hoke coming up here in just a second as rain starts to move into the metro area. We've got our storm tracker out in the rain. We have not much more than that here in Louisville. We always like to keep it somewhat close to the metropolitan area where we have the greatest number of people in case we have something happen. We can get immediate live reports from it. But nonetheless, if we were having one lone thunderstorm, we would send it there. But that's the reason, in case you're wondering why it's not out in Du Bois County. We've made the call to keep it close to home. Speaking of home, we'll go to our home view, put on our radar, talk about what's moving into Jefferson County is just rain. Could be heavy rain, especially right along I-65 as it works its way across the Gene Snyder and lifting into central and eastern parts of Jefferson County. May get the heaviest rain out of this. Our eyes are on on 2 storms. We're watching the one storm across parts of Jennings County, tornado possible, but it's a severe thunderstorm warning. And then, of course, we have the severe thunderstorm warning and the tornado warning in Du Bois County. Brian and I are keeping an eye on those, but Ryan Hoke's been on the phone just trying to track down any type of damage that we may be getting.
Yeah, and that's been a tough proposition today, which is a good thing, by the way. Make my job hard. We don't want tons of damage reports. What we have so far, basically, is a tree on a power line near Rhineyville right now, and then we've gotten an MPing report, which is an app you can download in your app store, MPING. It's basically a National Weather Service and University of Oklahoma collaboration there, and that's like a 2 out of 5 damage report near Litchfield, meaning some tree limbs or something like that has occurred there. But that is all we have, just those 2 reports. We've been in communication with the emergency management in Du Bois County, with Hardin County, with Grayson County, and of course we'll continue to be in communication with all of those folks heading into the remainder of the evening here as these storms continue to kind of push northward through our counties, Kev.
Yeah, I don't want to say a whole lot of nothing because that would sound like a bad thing. We kind of like it like this. Obviously, the storms are rotating. We have to pay close attention to each one of those that develop today. I'm going to take you on a little radar tour. We've got a new tornado warning coming out back out to the west. You see that getting extended from the one that we had, so that's going to lift it across Du Bois and even into parts of Davis County, so that lifts to the north. We have additional warnings coming out along this line too that you see flashing across the state borders of Illinois to Indiana. So the one that really, I'm going to give you the radar tour. Let's start with the tornado warned storm. Again, lightning and the tornado possibility as this storm lifts off to the north at about 30-35 miles an hour. Velocity on that continues to show up. That's the reason the warning continued. Remember, we mentioned Reeve earlier, saying that the core of that storm would be approaching before the top of the hour, and that's the same direction. So it's moving out of the viewing area as it moves out of northern and northwestern parts of Du Bois County. That moves out of our viewing area. Okay, so that one we'll hand over to the folks in Indianapolis or Evansville, whoever you may watch there, once it gets out of Du Bois County. Back to the radar view of that, just to show you that it currently is still in Du Bois County, just off to the north and west. The other storm that we have that we're watching, and bear with me as I pan the radar around, this is the strongest one in our viewing area that's online. And then I'm just going to work my way over. This is Bedford. You get into Lawrence County. Let's take US 50 back to the east. There's Jackson County, Brownstown, Seymour. This was one that Brian was watching earlier as it's now moving to the north and moving out of Jackson County, still showing some signs of rotation with that, indicated by, again, radar. And then this one still shows, this is Jennings County. There's North Vernon. You can still see the little hook on that. And we'll show you the velocity on this, and we can see if we can pick out the couplet. And there you see, and that's why they still have the tag on that one that says this is a severe thunderstorm warning with the tornado possible. You can see that indicated by the rotation that's showing up on the radar view. At this point on the radar, let me just pull that down. We're looking at the radar out of Indianapolis, and you can see that sweep swinging around. So again, we look at the colors of that toward and away, and that's where we see the couplet. That's going to approach North Vernon, all right? So that's one storm. The one over north of Seymour, less organization, less sort of rotation with that storm. Brian, what do you have?
Well, the one in Bullitt County into southern Jefferson, it's still got a supercell structure to it. There's nothing ominous there. I'm watching it carefully in case it were to try to reorganize. But there is at least a little pocket of wind. I would say about 25, 30 miles per hour on the high end. That's likely impacting some of you in Shepherdsville. May have noticed the trees on your yard, or you may hear them outside. The wind chimes may be picking up. It's trying to get a little more organized. This is crossing over I-65 here soon, but overall it is it's reduced in its size in a dramatic way, and I'm not seeing any big signal on the shear markers, which have done great on picking out when they intensify on the rotating side. I'm not seeing that right now. I'll be watching it. You certainly see the ones, though, for the storm into Jackson and Jennings, although you can almost argue the one in Jackson looks a little worse than the one in Jennings. But in either way, both of those are the twins we're watching. And then, of course, we've got the supercells producing the tornado warnings back out to the west as it's toward Du Bois County, back into Martin County, into Indiana. So for the next few moments, it's really going to be about what will happen with the storm itself as it moves into Bullitt County, into Okolona, Heritage Creek area. You may be getting some bursts of heavy rain in that area. No lightning, so you may get a heavy rain for your gardens without any strong winds and heavy rain or flooding issues or anything like that. We'll watch it. It's right over Hillview, crossing the Snyder, about to cross Preston Highway very soon, and head off to the north and to the east. No doubt, very heavy rainfall. This is moving so fast. This is moving faster than the other cells were. So eventually, you're going to end up with just a big traffic jam that is going to form here, where you've got these cells kind of just moving in the way of the big conglomerate as that line of storms is to the west. You got to keep in mind, this right here, this is the center barrel right there. It's wild that it was way out in the Atlantic, 2 weeks ago. And here we are with the center of a former hurricane that is now in the Wabash. That's the reason showers and storms. Obviously, it's no longer a hurricane, but still, it's pretty wild. That's a long journey to be talking about it, and now it's within our own radar.
Aren't you sick of talking about Beryl?
I am. A new name. New name.
Right? I mean, it's only the second one of the year, too. It's like, whoa, this is going to be a long tropical season. Right. When we look around, you can see the warnings getting squared up across parts of Jennings County. Obviously, we've been focused on the severe thunderstorm and the tornado warning in Du Bois County. The warning has been extended farther to the north. That includes parts of Martin County and Knox County back out to the west. So these are other warnings that are being issued. I can put the reflectivity back on so you can see from the radar view what's happening. Some lightning with each of these storms. No severe weather in Louisville. Really all on the outskirts of our viewing area, but you're all important to us as well. Once this tornado warning and the threat of it is gone out of Du Bois County, we may be able to temporarily get you back to programming, but I have a feeling that more of these will continue to intensify as the night wears on, and we're probably going to have to jump back on at some point tonight. Our temperature's down a few degrees here in Louisville with that rain moving in. Still a 21-mile-per-hour gust, but our temperature was at 93, now down to 89 here in the city. I'm going to zoom in on the tornado warned storm. Northern Du Bois County, we go to you. We look north of Jasper, a very ragged-looking storm, but nonetheless, it has had some wind and it has had some rotation showing up. We first noticed, and we still see that, and it still is in Du Bois County as it lifts to the north, approaching Reeve. We said that would happen by about 10 till the hour, so that track is pretty good on that. Reeve would be in line, and then following north along 231, that's going to take it up close to Barr, Indiana, and that's outside of our viewing area. Just to get your bearings, Jasper is in Du Bois County. You work your way over toward, as you make your way toward French Lick, you get into parts of Orange County, the Patoka Lake area, so we're just to the very western part of our viewing area as we track this storm across northern parts of Du Bois County. And that is not the only storm. We mentioned the other one up in Jennings County. That's where we have the severe thunderstorm warning. That severe thunderstorm warning continues as well. I'm going to zoom into that, see if we see any rotation with that. Very muted at this point. And so that's one thing that is good news, that continues to fade as it moves closer to North Vernon. When I show you the radar, you're going to see a tremendous amount of water with that. So they have had a tremendous amount of rainfall falling across parts of Jennings County. Our plan will be to go to our digital streams once we get this tornado warning out of Du Bois County. So at 7 o'clock, we're going to transition, as long as there are no tornado warnings, to our digital streams. That'll allow you to see, well, at 7 o'clock we've got Wave News on, so maybe you'll finally get some news of the day here. But nonetheless, that's going to be our plan. And that's going to be tough to do now that I think about it, so because we can't take up the studio and be on the digital stream at the same time. Anyway, thinking out loud, everybody's hearing my thought process here. But again, we'll be able to give you frequent updates during the news, obviously, and at 8 o'clock we'll be able to jump on our streaming channels. Just wanted to make sure we're there for you even through the night programming. Don't want to take up all the time unless we have to. We do that with tornado warnings because that poses a threat to life, and with the scenario that we're under today, I mean, this is pretty rare that we're tracking a tropical system right across the region, but today we have it. Combine that with the instability that we've built in throughout the day. We obviously have the immense shear in the the atmosphere, plenty of moisture coming in. The stage is set for strong storms to continue to develop even into the evening hours as we track these through the region. So we'll stay with you for another 13 minutes, and then we will get to Wave News at 7 o'clock, barring any additional tornado warnings that are issued. So some good news there, and then we'll get caught up on news and weather of the day. Back to our home view, and you can see those warnings continue out to our west. This is along that sort of spiral around that circulation of what was the hurricane. If I put this into motion, and we've got flood advisories coming out as well. This is going to be coming out for parts of Breckenridge County. Notice the movement of these storms, pretty much to the north and off slowly to the east. So flood advisories coming out for the area that's been really hit with multiple. Notice over the last few hours. I mean, if you had to pick the hot spot, it would have been Grayson, Breckenridge, and Meade counties. That's the area that has really seen a tremendous amount of water. How much? Well, we can show you that.
I think the rainfall rate's 2.25 per hour is the potential today. So now I'm curious what the totals are.
Let me show you the total while we're talking here. Let me just pump this up. These will be the totals over the last 24 hours. So what did you say it was 2.25?
Yeah.
So that was the rate. So if it were to rain a solid hour, you'd wind up with 2¼ inches of rain. That rain this morning put down a quick inch of rain. Did you see that, Brian?
I saw it on radar.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot you were on the news at noon. I was still at home at 11. All right, we've got an inch and almost an inch and a quarter in Hardinsburg. Happened in just a matter of minutes there. Brandenburg, over a ½ inch of rain. Those are our highest totals, but clearly southwest Indiana, western Kentucky. I'll tell you the place of the drought, places from Jasper to Paoli, Salem, Seymour, Bedford, you need some rain, and you've gotten almost the least. I mean, some areas in central Kentucky have seen less, but hopefully you get a little bit before the night is over with, without the severe threat, right? Back to the radar view. You'll notice the severe thunderstorm warning. Jennings, tornado warning almost out of Du Bois. We're going to stay on with you just until we hit 7 o'clock with Wave News at 7. And then we'll have the day's news, weather, show you the 10-day. It gets better. We'll get this past us, and then we warm it back up into a heat wave through the weekend. You can notice that storm is lifting to the north, and then I'm going to put the velocity on, and then we'll go over to Brian. So let me pop the velocity on here. Still seeing the rotation, and it's right at the county border. It's going to approach Reeve within just a matter of the next probably 5 minutes. So that target time was good. The forward speed at about 30 miles an hour. Brian?
Well, I've been tracking the shear markers on this. And again, these are just indicators of rotation within a thunderstorm. And notice this is the one that was in Hardin County. That was a very pronounced one that moved close to the Wrightingville area and around Radcliffe. I'd be curious to see the end result if we were to get any damage reports from that area. The other two have been across Indiana, relatively weak signals, but that's been it within our area. And to kind of compare that for you guys, look at the shear markers over here. This is where they've been on the ground, and that's where you're getting your pinks and blues. That is what you never want to see in your area, and that's what they're facing is damage. Trails on the ground, several large trails, in fact, have been on the ground at some point there in southwest Indiana. Again, it's right at the apex of the center of what was the tropical cyclone Beryl. But for our area, I'm not seeing any new markers being plotted here, Kevin, and that's good because they've been on it almost every cell and capturing that rotation that could make it down to the ground level. I have not seen that in the past 20 minutes or so.
Always a nice indicator to follow in addition to the lightning strikes and the different products that we have through the radar. So, yeah, you can imagine when we're in a scenario like this, so a little behind the scenes, we're all working. Ryan is working on all the digital stuff. So if you have the Wave Weather app, he's making sure you're getting warned before the warnings come out. He's making sure all of the social pages that we have are up to date. He's making sure our 24/7 weather channel is working, and we're on that on our apps. We've got a whole newsroom behind us working. So it takes a lot of people to really stay on the air for this long to make sure you have what you need. Obviously, Brian is tracking storms, and I've got my eyes on the storms that you see behind me. The storm tracker is out as well, and we've had that out throughout the day. We kept kept it in a pretty tight area to the metro in case something were to happen here. We wanted to be able to get to that first. So some folks are like, well, why aren't you on that storm moving across Knox County or wherever out of the viewing area? No, we stay local with this. Severe thunderstorm warning being expired for parts of Jennings County, so that one will be allowed to expire a little early. Let's just go to our velocity view here. And the bulk of this rotation is now crossing over, and it's sort of flattened out, but it's also crossing over the county line. We've got 8 more minutes to stay on with you. We're going to do that, and then we'll hit Wave News at 7 o'clock. And we'll get Dawn G to give you the day's news, and Ryan can deliver the weather forecast that takes us through the next 10 days. And before he starts to work on his show, let me ask if he's had any kind of damage reports. So I'm going to go to Ryan in just a second here. Our radar view first, and then a wider view just to point out what we're watching. This, for all intents and purposes, is now out of Du Bois County. Additional thunderstorms around us are now no longer severe. We watched the one storm up in Jennings County with lightning, but they've allowed that warning to expire, I believe. And this will bring an end to all the warnings in our viewing area as we approach 7 o'clock. Now, will there be more as we go into the evening? That is likely, especially in this area that we mentioned to our north.
And they just expired Du Bois.
Okay, so there goes Du Bois, as we were expecting. Additional storms back out southwest Indiana, far eastern parts of Illinois. Okay, Ryan, let's get one more check with you, and then I know you want to put your show together for 7.
Sure, that's what I've been working on here. But yeah, there have been no new damage reports that I can find, whether in social media or from our emergency manager partners at the surrounding counties here. What we do have are storm reports just from today in general here, and you see that we do have the one bit of damage there that was in Oldham County a little bit earlier today, and then tornadoes right along the Indiana and Illinois line there. It's been really to our west where the major problems have been so far today, but around here we've had some fairly good news. We've had some scary looking storm structure, especially near Radcliffe a little bit earlier, but that has since fallen apart. So we're very lucky in the sense that we have not seen the full bore of what could have happened today, as we were all talking about a little bit earlier, because of that cloud shield that got going out over our area here, likely protecting us from some of the worst of the severe weather. But we're not done yet, Kevin.
No, not yet. We still have to be vigilant. Our SkyTrack view shows a nice rainbow. This one sets out at Kentucky Kingdom, and you can see the skies lighting up with a little peak of sunshine or two and a nice rainbow there. We've talked about watches and warnings. We're fading the warnings away. Currently, there are no warnings in the viewing area, but we remain under a tornado watch, and that means severe weather is still possible. All right, that's going to take us through the next few hours. Warnings still likely to come. All right, and that's when you have to really take shelter and pay close attention. We've looked at the power outages, often an indicator of problems where wind has either taken down trees or power lines, whether that by straight line winds or microburst, downburst, or tornadoes. But we really see no major power outages. That's good news. Our temperatures have eased a bit. We're still at 90 in Lebanon. Lexington still at 92. Most of the rest in the 80s and several in the 70s. Dew points are juicy. That's that stickiness in the atmosphere. This is a temperature. When the dew point equals the temperature, the relative humidity is 100%. You can see those dew points in the low to mid 70s. That's a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. That acts as an aid or a fuel for the storms to develop. So we need the instability, but we also need the moisture. And we also need the lift. And we have the lift and the instability thanks to Beryl and the sunshine that we saw today. Southerly winds cranking in plenty of moisture. The stage is set for some of those stronger storms. We're at 6:56. 4 minutes away. We'll take a commercial break when they tell me to, and then we'll ease into a Wave News at 7 o'clock, and we'll have our newscast, and obviously we'll be here to pass along any relevant weather information, but more importantly, the 10-day that's going to show you that we're going to warm up and dry out in a pretty big hurry after tonight. As we work our way to that, though, let me zoom in to Louisville. Sorry, I was drawing on the map instead of zooming in. We are tracking this downpour. This was what was left of the tornado warning that moved all the way from the south. Remember, it started across eastern parts. It stole the show from the other tornado warning in Grayson County, worked its way up through Hardin County, western Bullitt County, and here it is. It's just a little old thunder shower moving across Okolona, eventually pushing toward J-Town. So getting some rain out of that as it moves off to the north. Again, that's one of just a few downpours that we have on the radar. A few more of those exist across southern parts of Harrison County, that's south of Corydon. More rain, but not severe, across Meade County, northern parts of Breckenridge County. And as we go farther to the south, where they've had pretty decent rainfall totals, they're still seeing some of those showers and thunderstorms, very scattered, but down that way across parts of Breckenridge County over into Hardin County, where you find Eastview, Franklin Crossroads. Let me go back to the home view. Our folks in southern Indiana want to know what's going on with them. And again, we have downpours mainly across southwest Jefferson County that are severe. This tornado warning has expired in Du Bois County, continuing to lift to the north. This severe thunderstorm warning has expired, continuing to lift to the north. Brian, one more check from you, and then we'll take a commercial break, and we'll get back to Wave News at 7 o'clock.
All right, so far so good. Ryan will have this coming up at 7, but Storm Prediction Center did do an update and basically have said that areas of southern Indiana near the river still the main focal point for warnings that could come out this evening, Kevin. All right,
So we'll be here. We're going to be tracking it. We'll be on our digital platform starting at 8 o'clock. In the meantime, Wave News at 7 is coming up. I hope you'll stay with us through the rest of the evening. You've been watching Wave's coverage of severe weather.